the statistics where there are almost 2 times or twice the number, nearly 3 times the number of men as there are women. Include that the fact that many men are in prisons, many men are out at war, fighting, jailed, imprisoned, or dead. And yet, the numbers of women are growing by the day. Beyond that, in the context of, for example, Islam has allowed and compelled are two different things. Islam has allowed a man to take on 2 wives, one wife, 2 wives, 3 wives, or 4 wives, but made it very, very clear if you cannot be just to them, then only one. And I think it's the only religion that actually sets out that very clearly. Having said that, and with this leeway that Islam has provided for people, you find that then we go to other faiths, for example, Christianity. You go to church, you only marry one person, and it is be together till death do you part. But around that, realities, including statistics that came out there last week, run in the Daily Monitor in Uganda, 73% of Christian men or Christian couples cheat. It was much more to do with men. So you find a person, one wife at home, looking happily married, but then having a string of mistresses. So the situation then is, would you rather have a co-wife that you know officially and therefore be able to know that if my husband is not home today, he's in the other home? Or would you rather he has those side chicks that you don't want to know about and just go on living your life? Reality is tonight, we are digging deep now to see, can it become acceptable? Under what situations do you find yourself accepting to become a co-wife? But we're also living the realities of those people who have been inside these relationships. What their kind of experiences, are there particular regrets? If they could do it again, would they do it differently? Many people, especially people from the Christian folk, for example, are very resistant to this. Yet the realities are becoming more and more day in, day out, that actually, you can have a co-wife and you can actually coexist very effectively and very happily. It's not a bed of roses, let no one lie. And no one as a parent would ever want their child, for example, to be a co-wife. But the realities in life are setting a fully different perspective. So tonight, I'll be wanting to hear from the women out there, people who have lived the experience and have come out of that. But there are also men. As a person married to more than one wife, are there moments that you almost wish you didn't do it? Are there stressful moments? Or have there been very good benefits that you actually think, if you could even add a third or even add a fourth? That's the reality of the conversation that we shall be having tonight in our global community conversation. And as we do it, all of us here are experts in one way or another. Probably you have lived in a polygamous relationship where you had your father and then several mothers, and you're coming to share those experiences. Probably, and many people most times don't want to live through a sort of a polygamous marriage or a polyandry where a husband has more than one wife, based or built upon their own experiences growing up. It might be that is one of the things that you would like to share. But probably you are out there, a woman, beautiful, educated, and after going through this entire education process, you come out and you realize the reality out there is you can only come in as a second wife. Would that give you much more comfort? There have been a lot of comments online regarding this, and I was just impressed getting to Corporate Muslim, one of the forums to which I belong and where I flagged this. And I hope that Hajj Ashraf Semogere has joined us, but I can see we already have scholars here. Imam Kasozi is already here. Sheikh Sulaiman Chibuka will be joining us if he hasn't. And the usual suspects, but including so many other people who have come into the conversation. It gets more interesting when we hear from you. And Hajj Semogere is actually in the waiting room. Why not admit him and get him into the conversation? Because lately, he has been writing something that was very interesting. I don't know if you have seen it. If you haven't, I'll be able to share a few of those links. But it's about a sheikh who went to Medina, studied good enough. He had 2 legs. That means he had studied the Sharia and he had also studied the secular education and therefore able to speak his English pretty well. And he ended up in a situation where now he has found himself, of course, between 2 women. It is actually the struggle, himself trying one, a rich woman who comes in with everything, and then the other, a young girl whose heart he had been holding in his hand, waiting to marry. Very interesting story that actually now probably would try to put a bit of context into the conversation that we are having tonight. But like I said, all of you are experts here, and it will be very interesting to hear your personal experiences. Probably you are ready to go in and become a second wife. Deborah, welcome very much. I can see your hand is up and burning. I'll come to you. Let me just finish the introduction and then we'll open up the conversation, get there. But I'm very happy to see you. That's a lady all the way from Mitiana Namtamba there, but living in the United Kingdom. And your comments are unbelievable. I'll just read these ones very quickly so that they can get us into the conversation tonight. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, just in case you missed that beginning. But Sonia Beta on Corporate Muslim says, I don't care about the number as long as I'm happy. The rest is background noise. A lot of monogamous marriages are filled with tears. Why would you have a personal tear gas can? You can have a shared candy. That's have you. Me too, says Nusra Muhammad, who says, as long as I'm happy and I can see him to earn Jannah, Alhamdulillah. I can't stand on an everyday man. Sometimes I just want to be home alone. Like 3 days of a week. No me singako wallahi na every nako. Diana Namakura says, men need to follow the right procedures. Tell the first wife rather than kukukuta or using it as punishment because she's not doing what you want. Secondly, men have kajanja with their new wives, therefore ignoring the first wife. This is where most issues start. May Allah forgive us and grant us Jannah. We'll continue hearing a lot of these which are actually on my different pages. But why? Not as usual, open a conversation around this. It is just about your view, your own take. Deborah, maybe it looks like you have something burning. Why don't we hear it as we open the conversation now? Go ahead, Deborah. And welcome to the conversation. Hello, Deborah. You can unmute yourself. Hello there.
Hi. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Good to have you in.
I'm burning for so many reasons. First of all, I am off camera because in the UK, I work with different people. I'm a doctor in psychiatry. And I work with different people, so I'm off camera for that reason.
No problem.
But I also...
Go ahead. So you are burning, what's burning? Yes.
There are three things burning. One, I had the statistics about, is it 20-something people that want to have their husbands to be habitually married?
To have co-wives.
Yeah, yes. Co-wives. That was not my experience because I am actually, by background, my father is an HIJJA.
Yes.
And he probably had 3 or 4 wives.
Right.
I am from Mitiana, and I'll correct you. I'm not from Namtamba. I'm from Nambale.
Nambale, yes.
I'm from Nambale. My father had wives, and because of that, my mother was the older wife of the 4 wives.
So she was the first wife.
Yes.
Yes.
And from about age 25, I've been looking after my father's children, which I resented very much because it was his life. Why did I get involved? And then I have seen the people in the UK, the people in the UK that come here and make their lives, and then they go, oh, well, I'm a Muslim. I can go back to Uganda and marry another woman, or 2 or 3 or 4, or however many. But they're living here on a very meager income that because of course, £100 is mitwala tano in Uganda, and mitwala tano in Uganda is a lot of money. But the mitwala tano of Uganda women don't know how much this man is trying to scrape off his children here, and we're having a lot of psychological issues. And so that's why I was burning.
So, Deborah, let me just take you on two aspects there. And as it is, it's a sort of a global conversation here. So if anyone has a view on what is said, you can always come in and, intervene. We are having a conversation literally. Now, Deborah, starting with the children, with your father's wives, did you ever get to speak to them, probably your own mother, and hear how she felt? Because a lot of times we could see
extremely
and
angry.
imagine.
They pretend when they cover themselves with those hijabs, they pretend. There's a lot of masking. But I have spoken to my mother, I've spoken to some of my stepmothers, I've spoken to a few other Muslim women. They pretend, they mask, oh, Allah we Allah gidde, Allah ismay Allah yagambi. Allah never says. These men, there's a lot of patriarchy, and in Islam, I'm telling you something, there's a lot of abuse. Oh, Allah said, cover up, do this, Allah did.
But what Allah says and what people do could be different. I mean,
completely different, very manipulative.
Like
extremely the Islamic and I do apologize to Imam Kassim because I listen to him and he's one of those people that I really value. The Islamic congregation knows how to what's the word? To subdue women. It's all about Allah.
But is that Islam then, or is it about individuals? Because is it not down to individuals? Because Islam has laid it out very clearly. So if it comes to
they don't listen to it.
They to implement.
Sheikh Kayira, people don't talk to you about, because I have studied the Quran and I've studied the Bible. They'll tell you, well, this is what you're supposed to. And you started off by doing that as well. You said, oh, it says you can have 2 or 3 or 4.
Yes, as long
can
as
you manage?
As long as
the Quran says, can you? Are you able to?
Shouldn't we be questioning that, Deborah? Shouldn't we be questioning that, whether someone has the ability to be able to deliver on that?
Thank you,
sir. Shouldn't we be questioning that instead of questioning the religion per se? Shouldn't we be questioning that? Yes,
yes,
Imam.
sir.
Maybe our sister is talking about the experience she saw and lived in. And then the first comment was very interesting, that from age 25, I have been looking after my father's children.
Yes.
You see, my father's children. That one also has its other issues.
That was the one.
Meaning, therefore, that these children, she does not look at them as her other siblings, but just my father's children. Maybe, I don't know. The issue may be when the father married the second wife and the third, the way he treated the mother, that one causes a problem. Islam speaks in ideal terms, what it should be. In practice, many people, many people do behave their way. Polygyny or polygamy, as most of you know it, sociologically they call it polygyny, is a practice in all and human societies and across everywhere. The difference between the Muslim polygyny or polygamy, for it is restricted. The other cultures don't. And since she's from here, Buganda, in Buganda, that's according to the Baganda, a man does not commit adultery. That's why they use the word oksajjalata, meaning that he is free to go with any woman as long as the woman has accepted. Okay? And that's why even they use the term that all women belong to the king. A king, traditional Buganda, the king can find you with your wife and takes the wife, or takes her, uses her, and then return to you. You would not question. In Swaziland, among the Swaz people, you know, the king there marries every year, and they parade young girls, and they point at one. So they can have as many as they have. But the Islamic one is controlled and then conditional. And conditional. As Kayira put it, it is not a must that you must have 2, 3, 4. No, it says 2, 3, 4. If you feel you cannot be just in dealing with them, then one. One already man here in Kampala, for him, he said, Babiri, Basatu, Obabana. And according to him, whenever he finds a man who has one wife, and for him, he thinks, you see, therefore, we should differentiate that. Then the other thing may be the issue of saying that women are pretending. Not all of them are pretending. Okay? I think what we need to do is to help our people understand what is a marriage relationship and what must be done. There are even those that are one, okay? They have only one. They are not even Muslims. They are also subduing women, because someone says, Islam, you subdue women. We do not subdue women. It is their faith that if they accept, they go with it. Because why do they do it? Or why do we do it in Islam? We strongly believe that this life is temporary. And you know, the moment you put it in terms of resources, income, as you have put it, it becomes relatively very, very hard to understand. But even then, Islam will tell you, if you do not have enough resources to cater, don't. Also, the number of children, don't produce children that you are not going to cater for, because you will be asked about them. But unfortunately, all human beings across the globe, whether they are in Europe, they may live whatever, we are very selfish. I think it is the selfishness. The majority of us, we are selfish. And it's because of that selfishness that sometimes we have issues. I may pause there and others come in.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Imam Kasozi. And my network had actually tried to play up once more. But the issue, I think, looking at the realities, because Deborah, I think, did raise some of these issues. And definitely Imam's explanation, I think, sort of lays out the circumstances or the grounds upon which we come into this conversation. However, there was one more element, which is looking at the realities of these situations. What would lead people to want to be second wives? And I think that's one that I would like us very much to explore as well, because these experiences have been, and like Deborah, you know, sort of lays out, it sort of sets out a particular situation, a particular condition, but the realities, because no one in their rightful mind, as women, for example, from a starting point, would want to be.
Yes.
That's really like the starting point. But you find that the circumstances,
yes,
okay, situations that would push one to end up becoming that. And I think part of the comments which you can hear from what we are listening to, you know, like online, I said, for example, on my Facebook, it is just busting. Mariam was saying, I'm ready to be first or second. Most of the time, experience, there's a bit of Swahili here, experience yangu Naona wanaume ndio wanasababisha wake zao kuwa na hizo vituko. Being a first wife is better when the second wife comes. Let your husband introduce you and at least you know who you are competing against. And that would actually make it much better instead of having to, because it and Vivian Narumans says,
yes, okay.
What he wants as an individual. Bills, etc. for children. He can have a central home where his father and mother, he trains them, say on a Monday about brotherhood and sisterhood. If his parents are alive, he takes them there, all his children for bonding. You cannot control an adult banana. The problem will come, the provision is not there. So you can see that there are some reasons that will push people to end up going down the road. As far, if you can please give me back the host rights. It looks like I've lost them and I wanted to start tapping onto people so that we can widen out the conversation.
Now, Kayira, yes. Kayira, in view of that, I can see, for example, in my office as an imam, I receive people who want to get married. And they are either they have been looking for, they have not got. Mm-hmm. What happens, as you have put it, we have many more females looking for husbands than the number of men who want to get married. And now people want to make a choice. Sex or sexual relationships or sexuality is a natural process which every adult in one or another will need. Now, people, those who are saying, I don't mind, I can be the second wife, that if she's minding about her religion. But if somebody says, even if I'm not married, I will find sex, okay? They don't mind. Those ones will not mind. In those societies where actually they pretend much more than the Muslim side, because they will tell you, one man, one wife, but again, somebody has a number of mistresses. And all these mistresses, he uses them the way he wants. Two, why, when you come to, for us, when you go into a marriage, then the man is supposed to be responsible. Is that responsibility. And that's why we say, if you are not ready, then you don't you don't go for it. The other thing I would maybe add, situations that are leading to this, numbers are one. Two, people stay there, they are getting old, and because of their personal dignity, due to social pressure again, they don't want to be looked at that I have produced children outside the marriage. And therefore they say, let me better join this. In sociology, those things are taught and they are there. So people may demand. Then the other issue is, you have, Deborah, you have your daughter, who is 25, was married officially, he loses a husband. Now, what should happen to this girl? Where is she going to get a man? And then your tradition will tell you, now you are telling your son again, don't marry a widow as your first wife. But now somebody is a widow at 25. Do we leave her to remain there? Those are some of the hidden issues that God, who created.
Oh, Imam, your line is dropping actually when you are raising a very, very interesting point there. But I'll come in while you come back. On a message here, a very powerful message I've found in the chat room.
That put it there, but he accepted it. He put. Yes. The last one I was thinking, let us not. Okay, let us not, co-wives, don't look at yourselves as competitors. The moment you call it competition, okay, then it will turn into conflict, because competition means you are struggling for a resource, but you want to share it. Conflict means I must eliminate the other for me to occupy. Okay.
Thank you very much,
And
Imam Kasozi. I'll just bring in Aisha Kisule very quickly, but that is after reading this message, which I found pretty powerful from Umar Frost Hospital. He says the second wife join practically any women group. The prayer and talk is always about second wife. The prayer that husband should never take another and responses that mock or cast the other woman. Most times it's as if she is not human. It's as if she doesn't and shouldn't exist. Have you ever pondered about her being you? Yes, you, the one making the dua against her. Have you ever pondered if she ever wanted such or wished for such? The second wife is another human, another you. She prayed to have a man as a protector, a friend, a husband, a companion, God willing, husband, God willing, the father of her children. Had Allah willed, he would have made a mate for everyone, but Allah is Allah. He decided already how he wants it to be. It's a long message, but actually quite one with a lot of food for thoughts. And I can see the hands going up, the craziness coming in. But we will hear from all of you, and that's why tonight we're having this conversation. Let's throw away the emotions. Let's start picking up into some of these realities. Aisha Kisule, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, my brother.
Are you a co-wife?
No, I am not.
Yes.
I don't know. Kayira, you need to ask that to your brother. Anyway, Seka. That is so cool. It is wana. Ngasimani. Naye.
Are you willing? Would you be willing?
I don't mind at all. I really don't mind, and I'm going to give you my reasons.
Yes.
Ekibuuzo kiri nti Seeka. Fe ababeera alhamdulillah Uganda nina ne ba brothers bange balina abakyala. The most important question is, are you willing to look after them? Are you able to look after them financially, emotionally, physically? Buli kimu ekyo kyekibuuzo bannange kyekirinanga okusooka, kubanga a lot of brothers backclaiminga ayagala kuwasa. Kati ngenda kubuuza Kayira one question. Tubeera Bulaaya oba abantu bali mu America oba wa, which man in this England asobola okusasula rent 2 oba 3 oba 4? Bw'aba asobola okituukiriza, no problem. N'alabirira ono omukyala, n'amulabirira n'oli, n'alabirira n'abaana bonna.
Nga bonna bali England.
Bali England abantu kati mwagala bana ate kiki? Why not? Twogera ffe kuwa bali England. We are living in England. Tetuli kuba Kampala. Ne mu England munange tulinamu abaana muno abaagala okufumbirwa mwebali. Era aba brothers ne beewayo nze njagala kuwasa wakubiri wakusatu. But are you willing to look after them equally?
Yes.
N'obalabirira, n'obawa finance, n'obawa omukwano, buli kimu ng'obalabirira ku mbeera eno gye tubeeramu e Bulaaya. No man can do that. Kati tebatulimba.
Bw'ogamba nti no man can do that, is it because emisaala tegiwera kusobola kukikola ekyo oba obukoddo nabwo weebuli? What is it about this that
you cannot make it equally, my brother? There's no way. Ate bw'ogamba nti okitaddeko nga bw'ogambye mbu abalala bali Uganda bali wano, olw'owe Uganda bambi. When is she going to be this man? Remember, omusajja ono abeera wano, akolera wano, agenda Uganda for 2 weeks over 3 weeks, maximum 4 weeks mu mwaka. Omutaddeyo omuwadde 4 weeks mu mwaka. Lw'omulabako kale omusasulira rent, it's not equally to
azikiriza nga Imam Kasozi bw'agambye.
Akkiriza lwa condition gy'omuwadde, si lwakwagala. Seeka, akkiriza because of the condition gy'oba omuwadde, si lwakwagala. Teri mukazi e Uganda ayinza okwagala nti aba ayagala omusajja abeere eno because of finance, naye ng'ayagala abeere ne bbaawe bw'ali naye. Akikkiriza because of the condition, naye si lwakuba nti kyayagala.
Now, the interesting thing is, Aisha, you raise a very interesting thing. I want to know Sheikh Washaria Muramba. Sheikh Sulaiman Chivuka is on tonight. He's just joined us. I would like us, but this is a very, quite often, it becomes a very emotional subject that sometimes we lose the logic around it. For example, Sharia of Islam and Deborah came in and she was saying people just misuse. People,
Yeah, they misuse it, wallahi.
And the Sharia is very clear. It says if you cannot, then
If you, exactly.
If you cannot be. But it's not equality, it is equitable. You cannot be equal to people.
Yeah, zenjagala mbuuze, why of all sunnas, eyo ye sunna yeesooka gye mulaba, why? Ojja kulaba omusajja nga
abasajja bakwatako nnyo.
Why? There are other sunnas ng'oli tasaala na kusaala nga ne swala yakusika tannaba gituukiriza bulungi naye ayagala kulaba nti atuukiriza kino nga ne swala eri wajibu nti it's a must tannagituusa.
No, I agree, Manaisha. And actually coming into this conversation, I'll say it, wallahi, I'm an impartial person in this conversation. That's why I wanted us to sort of, to sway emotions away and allow me to
my last point, my last point, atenga imamu wali wano, bannange nsanyuse nnyo. Kubanga imam can talk to other imams. They should stop encouraging people. Tikubanga gwoli omulabye, aine motoka, aine omulimu, aine ekirevu, aine olubuto, banage gosana bana. Tomumanyi, you don't know how they are living. Tomanyi neye motoka olusi omukazi yagimugulira, tomanyi financial omusajja abeera atya kubaga omulaba ali mu makanzu, aine ekirevu kiwanvu, aine olubuto, anyirira, n'omu-encouraginga nti gundi ayinawo wali omukazi. Si kibi, abaana balina okufumbirwa naye bannange eyo encouragement mugenda ne mu-encouraginga wrong people nga bambi n'omuteeka ku situation n'ayagala ate okupleasinga imaamu n'agenda okupleasinga imaamu ate neno yeereetera ebizibu ebirala.
Thank you very, very much. Your point is taken. Nabadde njagadde obeera okyaliko beerako tovaako.
Tosobola kuvaako.
Just so that we nagadde nnyo tuhandlinge this element of being equal to all the wives. Equitability, there's being equitable and there's being equal. These two things are different. And once we understand this, at least putting it in the context, because a lot of times we find people coming in, like Deborah was raising an issue, they were abusing. If people stood back and they took some time to think through some of the decisions that they are taking, when you take on someone's daughter, the kind of responsibility that you're taking upon yourself is a heavy responsibility. Having thought through all of this, then you embark on this, because marriage is ibadah. It's not just just doing it for its sake. It's an ibadah, and within an ibadah, you will expect to get reward, just like you can be punished in case you fall short of the expectations. You are accepting to take responsibility for what is going to happen. Sheikh Buka, you just disappeared. Are you there? Please unmute.
Sheikh Wendy says,
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is a heated subject, and I would like everybody to feel free to express.
You need to calm it down.
But to calm down and be able to try and manage the emotions in a manner that allows us to be able to deal with some of these things. Because some of these conversations, when we are having, for example, a dars or khutbah, you cannot get an opportunity to have this conversation where you can honestly sort of express a feeling. And that's why I wanted people coming from these particular backgrounds, people who have lived through these experiences. It's not happening. If someone came whose behavior, whose whatever is acceptable, getting to marry this person, whether that would help. Sheikh is able to turn it out. Let's pick up from the fact that, like equitability, which was the issue at stake. Aisha was absolutely fuming.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Sheikh Kayira, for such a wonderful, I think, discourse that you organized today. And I thank my respected, models, Sheikh, Imam Kasozi, and so many others, the wonderful sisters are contributing. But I think at the end of your, last comment, you somehow discounted me from the discussion. And I hit that because you said we need people who have got experience in this, and still I'm out of the bracket. But as an outsider, I think I still have the privilege to say something from, the
personal experience. But you're coming in from a Sharia experience, which I think is where the value is. And we want to sort of lay that basis very clearly, because that's where many people hide it.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. And I think I would like to maintain an impartial position, because I think this is a very, very sensitive topic. Often some of the comments we hear from our sisters, reflect the kind of impartiality that we tend to use when we stand on the podium, to emphasize and talk about the situation of polygamy with all the good intention, but maybe it's not being well addressed. I think, first of all, I just want to say there are two things that we always confuse when we talk about the fundamental point of consideration when you think about, getting a second wife, a third one, or the fourth one. And I don't know if the two words are always confused or they are synonyms. I do not know. There is a word fairness and there is a word equality. I don't know which one of the two is the correct interpretation or translation or interpretation of the word وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا فَوَاحِدَةً أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. Some people would take it to be equality, which I think is a subset of fairness, but I don't think where there is every equality, there is going to be, where there is every fairness, it might not necessarily mean equality. Yes. And I think this is one important point we really have to think about. The Quranic verse is very clear, and if we pay him that advice, which basically discounted some of the most immediate point of consideration, which even Sister Monaisha mentioned about, giving an example of life in UK here, that how many men are there who can afford, to pay, accommodation and all the financial obligations in UK here. You realize that it's going to be very difficult. But fortunately, the Quran does not specifically talk about finance, although it's part and it is integral to that element of fairness. So we really have to go back and think about that. For me, the question of integrity, fairness, I think becomes a mutual responsibility. I look at it from the mutual responsibility point of view. And that statement, although it tends to be patronized as being directed to men, it equally applies to women as well. When the Prophet ﷺ said that tunkahul mar'atu li arba', he might have mentioned tunkahul arba li arba'. Maybe the address was specifically to a man. But these key points, the key factor that he mentioned, we would say the same thing if he was addressing a woman. If a woman was thinking of a husband to go for, if there were 4 prospective, applicants, she would have to consider all these 4 aspects. So it is an element that has to be considered by both of them. It's not only just specifically for men. So the issue of fairness needs to be addressed. Fairness is more important than equality. My understanding of equality would mean 50-50, but fairness would be that if you have maybe a 1.5 foot boy and a 3 foot boy and a 7 foot boy, and you want both of them to see over the fence, you won't be providing the same height to a 3 foot boy as you would to the same person with a 5 foot. You'll have to adjust the fairness to ensure that both of you have a clear view, parity of sight on the other side of the fence. So fairness would mean that even the finances are not really there, there is something really more important more than finance. And I think this is where the question of finance, or the question, why is it always put at the forefront? Does that mean that if, for example, I chose to go for the second wife, the third wife, and of course, we know we can plan as much as we can, but we never predict for certain how the future is going to be. Does it warrant that as soon as my financial status plummets, the second wife should go, or the third one, or the first one?
COVID comes in and you lose your job, and therefore
so we should really emphasize this point. We really have to look at the overall spirit that that is intended when this institution is being legalized for Muslims. It has benefits beyond the financial consideration.
Without interrupting with your flow, which I'm enjoying at this moment, allow me just to add in that a very important element. In today's world, especially here in Europe and the Americas, women have gone out, they have done their studies, they've gone for their masters, they've gone for their PhDs, staying longer in school, coming out and getting very good jobs, but also time has run upon them. So you come back, you have the money, but you need that emotional support. It's not just about the money. So I just wanted to sort of highlight that when money is put at the forefront, the husband is supposed to look after. But what if you have the money and you don't have that passion? Go ahead, Sebo. I just thought that should actually get into the mix. And I can see many hands up. We'll get all your questions, inshallah, or points dealt with. Issa Makum, your hand has been out very, very long. HBN and Ismail Musoke. But Sheikh, continue, please.
Yeah, I'll just finish. Maybe I'll add other points later on. And also one thing I've noticed, after close examination and experience the communities here, there is something about either cultural biases or what we call cultural biases that range from fluidity to rigidity to flexibility. What I mean by that is that you often find that there are some, I would say, maybe some of our people from certain cultures tend to be more flexible with the issue of polygamy, being a co-wife, a second or third wife, and you find it quite very, very unacceptable in certain societies. And this should not actually be the reason. And I've seen quite a lot of people, a lot of families in UK here, where you'd find, for example, a Ugandan, a Kenyan woman with another, for example, Nigerian co-wife. They tend to get on well than find, for example, a Ugandan woman would struggle and find it very hard to coexist in a marriage with a fellow Ugandan sister. And I don't know why. That's what I call cultural rigidity or biases, and they do not really help, the benefits that should be encouraged, enjoyed in this. You find in America, I don't use it as an example, but you find that, even the issue of polygyny, you find there are some sections in America where polygyny is not a problem. It's haram in Islam, but because of their culture, they don't really find it. But I really find that the issue of cultural biases here are embedded in the reason or in the argument against this institution that is always appear to be woven in the issue of equality and also the financial constraints. So I really think that we need to go back and address this issue, because we really know that the need is there. All of us have got daughters, and I know you're bringing up this question as well. Will I be happy to see my daughter going to, a polygamous marriage? SubhanAllah, I'll still go back, much as I would wish. I know the Prophet ﷺ himself said to Ali radiallahu anha, in a message that was well woven in, and Ali understood what the Prophet ﷺ meant when he said that Fatima budu'atu minni yurdini ma yurdiha wa yu'dhiha ma yu'dhin. And it is said that Ali radiallahu anh, because of that statement, that Fatima is...
What was the meaning of this statement, Sheikh?
That Fatima is part and parcel of me, right? Whatever makes her happy makes me happy. Whatever makes her sad makes me sad. And Ali radiallahu anh noticed that because of that, he found it very, very difficult to marry a second wife after, as long as Fatima was still alive. And as soon as he passed away, Ali married almost more than 10 other wives later on. So there are always going to be issues. Every parent would say, well, I would wish my daughter to be the only one. And I'll tell you just finally, I know of someone, subhanAllah, you would know that person because he's talking to you at the moment, whose mother said to him that, I just have to be, polite here, whose mother said to him that, I think I made a mistake when I never allowed your dad, to marry a second wife. That's why you're not going for the second one. She thinks that's the case, that she set the trend that all her children cannot, marry the second one because she thinks she set the tone. So the issue is later on, as we grow, we realize that actually there is a lot of good, even if there might be some difficulty. And that's the nature of life. Where there is a give, there is going to be a take. You can't pretend to walk forward unless you have to leave one foot behind at one stage.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Suleiman Chivuka, for that highlighting. I'm sure, Mwanaisha, now probably you've got a little bit of an inkling. And this is not one debate where one wins and one loses. We are dealing with emotions. Everybody will take it differently. Everybody will be hit differently. But it's until you start facing those realities that you actually start dealing with the situation. Program is come. Let's talk with me, Kassim Kayira. It's 6 minutes to 9 o'clock in the United Kingdom. Many hands coming up, and I would be interested. And Mwanaisha, I think you have something to say to Sheikh before he goes, and then I'll go to Issa Makumbi, whose hand has been up so much. I want to hear from as many ladies and as many men as possible. So please, when you come on, keep it short and sweet so that we can put in a lot more. And just before I forget, Haji Ashraf Semo Gerere, a playwright, one of the best playwrights in Uganda, is with us in conversation. And actually, because of his internet, you'll allow me, just as we get to 9 o'clock, we'll bring him in. But he shares this particular experience because he has written. There's a series that is ongoing at the moment. I don't know if you've seen it. A date, is it a murder at a birthday? Very interesting that is getting people talking, but it's about the sheikh who went to Saudi Arabia, to Medina, studied Sharia, came back to Uganda, meets a very rich woman, but then he had another girl from the village whose heart he was meant to keep hold of. Why actually should I be preempting what Hajj Ashraf himself will talk about that? Because that will bring in a little bit of a reality, but from a comic perspective, although we are dealing with a very serious matter. Mwanaisha, you have the microphone, and then we'll go to Isa Makumbi.
Just a point when brother was talking about the Nigerians and the West Africa, I'm going to refer to the West Africans, about marriage. I lived in Kampala in Mengo, and this is one of the beauty that I learned from polygamy, of having more than 2 wives. We had in our Sakati a gentleman from Senegal. He had 2 wives, and believe me, I learned from this from childhood, growing up, that a man to have 2 wives, it was the most beautiful thing, because we grew up knowing, seeing even. This man used, they try with the equality, and this is what I'm saying, brother, equality. This man used to buy clothes, he will come, this is for first wife, this is for second wife. And they used to live in the same sakati. They shared from the same pot. They used to cook from the same pot. When it's time for food, they all sit in a circle and eat as a family, because the man gave them that love. He never showed that this one was more than this or this one. Everything he brought was equally. And the respect he gave to the first wife, because whenever he came from his safari, they used to travel to Dubai and bring his things. The first wife will be given everything to share, and they will all sit down and share equally. But it's that love. I don't know whether this is a cultural thing, which in Uganda, it's very hard. And that's how children have grown up knowing co-wives are the worstest thing. But because of how the man handles the situation, showing either with the Baganda, I think it's the opposite. When the man marries, the second wife becomes the gold. And the first wife, I've seen this in families. I'm talking about families that I know. The first wife get dumped, they don't visit her, she doesn't exist, it's like she doesn't exist. And this is the main point that brings problem. When the kids grow up seeing this, their mother being mistreated, treated like trash and all that. So when they grow up, girls grow up knowing that that is the last thing I want in my life, being a second wife.
If I can put it to you, do you think today's men, we the men of today, have become so weak, we have lost touch with the reality?
Absolutely.
Or could it be that the women have also contributed to this? Because a lot of times, and this was mentioned in some of the messages, remember at the beginning that I read out, the first wives become so tough, they become so...
Let me tell you, my brother, let me tell you one thing.
Many men are traumatized here, unable...
No, it's how you handle. It's how you handle the situation.
Imam, let's hear from Mwanaisha, and then yeah? Please. Imam,
is how you handle the situation. If you come to me Islamically and you tell me, my wife, this and this is the situation, I want to marry, and because of this and that. And after that, don't you give me all the love and support as your first wife and respect. Like one of the brothers said, that you introduce your wife to your second wife, that I'm gonna marry this person and this person is my second wife. Do it not to munkuku tu. Ne weba no genda no uliro mkazi nwasa guiseko sima myaka ebidi obusajja yawasa aina abana. How would you feel? It's not nice. Do it in the right way. If you do it in the right way.
How about the Kajanja?
Mwanaisha, let me tell you my story. My father is in his 80s.
He's still married.
So he did his marrying when we were much younger. It is not, in fact, he has not been to London or the US where he has children. He has children in Boston and London and in South Africa. But he was never that kind of man. But he was also extremely selfish, that he did not care about our mental health, our mental well-being. He did not care. It was about him. He was a man, and therefore he had to have this. And he had a bit of money. He's an Hajj, by the way. So he could afford these things. But he did not care about us as children. How much time did he have with us?
That matters a lot.
When I work with people here, they tell me, I don't know my father. He's on the plane all the time. He's traveling here and there. I don't know my father because he's in that place, or when he comes home, he's arguing with us.
I think that is an issue with parenting.
That's a parenting issue. Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
No, it is not. It is a lot more.
Example of the Senegalese guy.
It is a lot more.
And the Senegalese guy, and then Debs and her experience.
You can say that, but it is a lot more than the parenting issue. It is about, have you asked your children before you went to get your third and fourth wife?
All right. Thank you very much. I'll just move to Issa Makumbi because he's been waiting too long. I think it will feel a bit unfair as the conversation gets a bit one-sided. Issa Makumbi, you have been waiting for so long. I hope your hand hasn't frozen from...
Yes, Salman Sheikh.
Yes.
It is a good topic. Actually, for us to go for the headlines, they say if you can marry more than one wife, if you can afford it. Financially, culture, and anything you do, it has to be equally done. If you can't do that, don't bother. It's sure as stated. That's how it is. But for us to pick up the headlines, you just don't have to marry the second wife or the third wife if you can't manage. Look at the situation where we are at the moment. Can you manage 2 wives? You can't. There are some laws in some countries whereby marrying a second wife becomes a problem. You could be sued for that act, which is not allowed.
Issa Makumbi, let me just bring it to your attention.
Yeah.
For example, from the 70s and 80s, homosexuality was totally forbidden. It was actually a crime. In the military, up to now, they are still struggling with how to actually lift that. Through concerted efforts and campaigns that happen deliberately by the campaigners responsible for that, you see how it is being thrown across. It has become so public, you see it everywhere you go. It is through conversations like these that we have in places like this that the reality will start happening. All those people that are married to one person, in UK, for example, let's use the UK as an example. See how many people have mistresses in cabinet, in offices, in everywhere. They are running with mistresses, things that have led actually to huge numbers of divorce because it comes up with unfaithfulness. And why not speaking to one wife officially? How does that help the situation?
Let me finish my argument.
Have a situation where someone is protected, because by getting a co-wife, your rights are protected because you know where your husband is, you know where the income is going to be distributed. A person going to a mistress, in fact, beside the cheek, what you mean to be expensive when you wagon the person at home will be considered because they are looking about the second meal, and they will be considered. Go ahead, Bwana Issa, but I just want to
I'm saying the law, on aspect side of the law, that's how it is. But
the law changes. That's what I wanted to say as well. The law can change.
Can you afford to have two homes in this place or to run 2 families? It's very expensive. And for me, I came from that background. My father had more than 2 wives, had 2 wives. We made a life hell for him. All of us would pick the most expensive schools he could afford it because he was a rich man, and he could carve into our demands. But nowadays, it is next to impossible to run 2 families because of the financial situation. I've seen people talk about Uganda. We've got a problem. People marry the second wife or the third wife. Physically becomes like single mothers. They abandon their children to their mothers. You find most of those who have been looked after by their mothers. They are absent fathers. Where are they? Those are those who marry more than 1 wife or 2 wives because they can't afford it. They go there for sexual enjoyment. When the love fades away, they disappear into the thin air. Reality is, even at home, it's becoming very, very difficult to have a second wife. Though the other side, the Christians, they are picking up our habits. For them, they are going into marrying first or second. You see them when they die. You see so many children are being lined up. children, wives coming out of, you see wives coming up.
Yes.
Their sisters know that this is my son, blah, blah, has got 5 or 3 or 6 children. But the problem is everything comes to financial situation. If you can't afford it, it's really a nightmare. And if you are too poor, you become even more poorer.
Much more expensive. Thank you very
Life
much.
becomes expensive.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'll actually read the chat room. It's very, very burning up with lots of comments in there. I'll bring HBN, whose hand has been up. I'll come to Ismail Musoke, then Joy's iPhone. First of all, to HBN, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Is this something very close to your heart?
It is.
Yes.
But at the same time, I don't want people to kind of like, people have a tendency of when people speak to relate everything to assume that it relates to them.
No, but this is a conversation. This is a conversation,
Yeah.
HBN. Just feel free. Yes, we are conversing. Naro is listening in from where she is now, and so I would be worried if it was about that. I'm not.
Okay. In one of the statements that you made, you said marriage is an ibadah.
Yes.
And we all know that we study all the ibadahs that we do. How many people study marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Some people just marry for the sake of marrying. Yet, this is one of the ibadahs that is important because it contributes 50%, yeah? Okay. 50% of your faith. Mm-hmm. But how much time do you take to study this marriage? How many times do you think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this marriage of yours? What intention do you have in all the things that you do? Most of the times people do things for their own personal gains. Remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a witness to this marriage. But how many times do you think about him when you're doing the things that you do? My other point is, I'm sure that polygamy itself wouldn't be a problem, but the way it is applied. I don't know where some men are read, but for some reason, they go and backbite their first wives to their second or third wives. They tell them all sorts of lies. Then these women come in as if they've come to fight the first wife. Yet this first wife looked after this man so well to the point that these 2, 3, or 4 saw him good enough to have. Yeah,
that's a good one. Yes.
And another thing, you'll find that there are some women who wouldn't mind sharing with their sisters on condition that their man is the leader. In what I mean by this is, in Islam, the man is the head of the family. You as the head of the family, how are you going to lead your people? What some men do, they do divide and rule. When they see these women, yeah, being friends, they don't like it. I know of a situation where the sister welcomed her sister and the man didn't like it. What did he do? Divide and rule. Said some things about the first wife, then the second wife didn't want to know after that. So we should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
There's just that common saying, HBN, that once 2 wives, become friends, then they will connive against you, then you are finished as a man.
That's an assumption.
That's an assumption. Yes. Go
then
ahead.
Another thing is, if you want these women, yeah, to cooperate, then be honest and open to them. If you hid your other wives, and after how many years now you want to involve your first wife, she doesn't want to know. You kept it hidden, so leave it hidden.
It might be out of fear. It might be that I love my wife so much. My first wife, I love her so much. I feel that by telling her, I will hurt her feelings. And yet, there is an urge to have that second wife. And therefore, I kept it as a secret. How about that? I'm just acting here as a devil's advocate on this.
The issue here is The truth is, Sheikh Kayira, you know, most men here do not have what it takes to have 2 wives.
What does it
Most of the ladies are supporting them financially. So by taking the second or third wife, the wife will be like, okay, enjovu simanga telemera masanga gayo.
Yes.
Kakati munange ulikana kuwoza tolina sente kati otulaze nti no olina obusobozi obubeezaawo amaka agasuka mugamu kakati buli biiru gisasule ku kikumi ku kinnaakyo. The wife comes here to help, but now the person you're helping feels, you know, he has enough now to have 2, 3, and 4. So now you leave everything to him, and what happens? He ends up not like managing, and that's where things go wrong. But I'm sure if polygamy was done in the way that it should, very many sisters wouldn't have a problem. The problem is the way it is applied, the intention that people bring when they're marrying, and so many other things. Thank you so much.
Very, very much, HBN. And please, I can see Ismail Musoke, your hand has been up for long. Joyce iPhone and Mzee Imam. But I'm worried about Haj Ashraf's network disappearing. So I'm going to seek your permission, your indulgence, so that we bring him in. He's on an island somewhere, and it was difficult even connecting. Please allow me just to bring him in. Haj Ashraf, I'm trying to look for you. I don't know if I can see you. And then I'll come to Ismail Musoke. With your permission, Ismail. Thank you very much for your patience. Haj Ashraf, are you there? I'm trying to find you. Has any found him?
I'm there.
Fantastic. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Network kuchizinga njira betandikiddewo. So if there is a problem, network will forget.
Alhamdulillah.
Audio.
Hello.
The conversation around 4 wives. This is something that you have written a lot about, and I've seen actually several plays, including one actually that is a story that is making the headlines that you would want even people to subscribe to your WhatsApp group to be receiving the stories. But a very fantastic story about the chef. Let me first take your own view about co-wives, because probably you're even still married to one.
I'm going to talk about it in 2 ways. One through experience, and what I've gone through, what I've really observed myself. Around 1998, I was commissioned by the Ministry of Gender to write something about domestic violence. But I had a problem. Doing research on that issue was not easy, because you couldn't enter someone's home and you ask that, how do you fight your in the home? That was very difficult.
Yes.
So one of my aunties was working with the Uganda prisoners that were in the function there in the village. I've got some contract somewhere, but how do I go about with it? And that aunt of mine, Nangama, you not here. You can interview women in prisons. Around 85% of women in prison are there because of domestic violence. When I went there, by then it was the Tima, and I went to interview. Most of the women I interviewed who were in prison, wallahi siba siram, and they are from monogamy relationship with monogamy, and not interviewing around in those 157 the men, and then 130 women. The 130 women born kwaliko 23 abali abasilamu. The rest were from Christian families. Families ezo ngazina kubera na muchalo momu. The rest is abasilamu abalala bano bakugambye the 23 ate tewali bagambye nti yayiddeko wife ye acid ono yakozebwa temwali mu ali nga musiramu yayirako wife ye oba acid oba yayakyo omwana wa munne ebyo balimu. But in the other Gondia relationships ziri endala ez'aba Christians, there are many. era mwe mwali bakijambia mayibuli in prison bayita manyago, the weapon he or she used to commit the crime. Kati had the kiyambia, there's baby toy yasula mwana mu toilet because of domestic ngoni ne bwalozo buloza anti bawa alinayo omuntu gwalina ebweru nasalo mwana mu toilet. Kati ekyo ne kibaawo. Kati I was given when IUIU, this is Islamic University, nga bakola the 30th anniversary. Dr. Sengeno gave me their commission me to write a documentary about their university. Naye nze theme yange nagiteeka ku bakyala abawala abavudde mu university from Mbale. Most of them I interviewed bali bava mu polygamous families. Naye nga they are stable in their marriages. Kati bwe mbadde mpuliriza those who we are discussing here, ndabye emotions nyingi nnyo naddala mu bakyala. Why? They don't understand marriage. But take up emotions, not marriage, they understand marriage. They don't understand polygamous marriage. I know about the HBN, a Gambian, Tabatu Somesa, marriage, polygamy, Tabatagira, Kujitagereo. Name a Somesa, those girls, or women, never very younger, they understand marriage. So that agenda kuingira mu polygamous marriage yabusiramu nga kitegeera. But why the emotions? The emotions zijja because naturally bina tuba mpulira nti mukazi wange saagala kuwulira nti waliwo yamwagalako before she got married to me.
Obubira yamwagala kwedda nga tonnaba naye.
Anti dewe musaaga njagala kuyita waali. That emotion is there. Ekyo kya kukijjamu. Kati kikuleeta n'okutandika okugaana nti Qur'an erike lwaki neyagiwandika yali musajja. Otuuka yeeyo because of that emotion. Naye ate nga tusobola kugaana kintu ng'ekyo okubeera nti kyakola ki weekiri. So marriage need to be understood. Ffenna tetugitegeere. Abasinga, most of the people, naddala abakyala ayingira with the other emotions.
Naye abasajja abo tokirabye nti nabo bayingiramu nga balinga abatali beetegefu ne batomera butomezi n'ayagala agendere ku peer pressure.
Ate abasajja babi nnyo. In both sides ate abasajja babi nnyo because one, ffe tugenda kuyigira ku mulimu. We learn from the job. Naye abakazi ate ne babeera nze tendabye nkigenderedde mu bakazi be na interviewingira. The women abava mu Christian family ate n'afumbirwa omusiraamu naye nakkiriza obusiraamu abeera better than a woman abadde nga musiraamu n'ava mu family ng'eri polygamous n'omuwasa. Oyo ajja ku offensive ajja kulwana nga bwe yakirabika. Ate oli the Christian n'omala omuwasa nakkiriza n'atula shahada bulungi era nakkiriza okubeera obusiraamu n'abusoma n'obusoma. Oyo ajja amanyi nti gye ngenda eriyo ki. They will marry another woman naye ndina okukigumira. Naye ate omusiraamu yajja kulwana bagenda naye ajja kundaba. So usually that is the difference. And if abasajja tuyigira ku mulimu saying they say that waliwo bakojja baba bakyala balina basenga. Naye bakojja they are not there. I go tata wange bwaba mukubi nange mba mukubi. If my father wabanga yali alina bakazi babiri naye nga playing equality eyo ne fairness nga Sheikh bajogeddeko, I'll do that. Naye tata wange bwaba yali mukubi nga mulaba nti musawanya mukuba nange I will do, of course I'll do that.
But HIJJA kumulamwa oguliwo olwaliro bw'olaba really about having a co-wife or not having a co-wife. Circumstances, even based on your research, but also from a comical, because sometimes when you're writing plays, there's the comedy aspect that comes in, or that interesting feature, but there's more to it in terms of social dynamics. Waliwo abadde annyonnyola wano abadde Sheikh ekibuuka abadde annyonnyola n'aga nti yeewuunya looking into families where, for example, a Ugandan marries Uganda, then West African, say from Ghana, from Nigeria, from Mali. You find that the way these two wives, the co-wives relate, is totally different. The person, they speak the same language, and therefore there will be more cognitive.
That's where I was coming. I have two live examples. There are 2 books. So remember the book I wrote, I Hate My Mom. The woman, the ambassador, Yarina Muchalawe, they brought a lady over a girl. Ngajanga kubera house help. She started helping awakanga akole emirimu bulungi nnyo, but because baali baleeta shake every evening okusomesa abaana abawaka eddiini, this woman yali ava mu family ng'amanyi Quran ye kitonotono ng'asobola n'okusomesa abaana eddiini. Then the main oba omukyala omukulu yasaba bba nti wasooyo. Yamusaba bba nti wasooyo. Njiddemu. Kakadde this woman oba the girl go bayitanga house help, but in Uganda we call bayitanga house girl. Yajja ng'oli ali prepared bulungi ng'amanye eddiini ye atageswala temuyitako. Kati at this man is home, ambassador oba diplomat yabeerangawo ng'alina abaana be, naye he wanted abaana b'okukula nga balimu eddiini. So what he hired a sheikh yajjanga n'asomesa abaana abo. But when this girl came in, ujjukira amanya yasalo naye bulungi nnyo ne Quran, then not taking over. Oli ne bamugjawo the sheikh yajjanga kubanga yamalanga akaseera katono. The man agenda okuva ebweru okudda awaka ng'abaana balaba esswala bagikula bulungi. Abaana bw'obagamba nti tetumala okusaala tulyoke tukole kitulye. That was the situation in the home. Kati at one time, the wife, the main oba muyite mukyala mukulu, n'agamba bbaawe nti oyagala okuwasa, yogera amazima. N'amugamba yes, I want. Kubanga n'olugambo yali aluwuliddeko. What happened? Omukyala n'amugamba nkwegayiridde wasa omuwala oyo. Today, kuba omuwala oyo bamuzaayo n'asoma, kati asomesa mu one of the universities. The relationship eri wakati waabwe balabika bombi bategeera the values of a polygamous family. Eyo nenjivaako nenkuleetera eno gye mbaddeko ya death on a birthday gy'obadde oyogerako. Omulenzi yava gundi Madina n'akomawo e Uganda naye ebintu ebigaana n'asaaza mu mizikiti nga alinga asaba ssente ezo. Ku kyalo bamugamba lwaki towasa? Najje Dubai kufuna ki mulimu naye ali ku nnyonyi kwafunira omukyala eyamwegomba. Bwabeera n'omukyala n'amugamba nti are you ready okumpasa batuuse jo Dubai? Omukyala mugagga nana n'ekizimbe mu Kampala, mukyala mugagga naye n'ambulira amazima that I have someone in Zimbabwe, not really Zimbabwe, but commas netugeze in Zimbabwe. They ended up omukyalo oli omukulu oli omugagga kale sijja muyita mukulu nti please first marry salama then come back nango mpasize Dubai. Then later on what happened? We waddayo yamuwa sente n'atwala kitaawe e Dubai babawowe naye kitaawe n'agaana. No, don't do that. Salama must know. Ekyokubiri nze sijja n'abeera ntya ku mbaga when my family members are not here. So they had to go to Zimbabwe on our somulama, and let alone they resolved it never chikolera London. At first Salama of course yali mubi nnyo yagamba it can't be kubanga kati this is funny. Burhani tata wa Salama ate yasinga okuba ne bbuba Yes, because ye Bruhani ne mukyala we teyamuteekako mukyala mulala. Okiraba naye ate maama ye nga tafuddeeyo naye Bruhani yatuuka n'olumu nga bali kubanga taata wa Salam wagundi wa Najibu, that is the sheikh, naye yali sheikh yava egindi yava Madina. Baba olumu akola kutuba ng'abulira ng'ayogera ku relationship eri wakati w'abazadde n'abaana n'oba omwana gy'omufumbiza, because Bruhan had given Najib a house mubali naye ng'ateekayo amateeka. Naye okumanya Bruhan yalina ebbuba. At one time yatuuka okugamba mukyala nga sheekh abuulira ku nsonga eyo muki muziki n'amugamba Mubaraka nzija mu kutuba zo. Olaba naye just imagine omuntu asooka okusobola okuyimirira mu kutuba n'ayogera. So emotions ziri yonna. Ne basista baffe abali wano baleeta emotions ziri yonna. But you just need to understand. Olowooza sigira kugankyawo muddemu awo.
Era wenyini nange wenyini mbadde ngenda okuwummulizaamu omaze otuteeka mu gundi ate saagala kuba tituluzinga, especially story eno ekyagenda mu maaso, and you would like people to subscribe. Just in case network nevaako, please just flag that message about the WhatsApp group and how it works. Then I'll go to Ismail abadde yalinze ennyo kubanga gwanvu, then Joy, Mzee Imam, Sophia Joy, and then no, it's Ismail, Joy, then Mzee Imam and Sophia Murango. Genda mu maaso ssebo. About this WhatsApp group, how are you doing this story? This story actually for viewers tonight, it's a very, very interesting, very powerful story. It's a real story. That's the one thing about HIJJA Ashraf, that he gets these true stories, but then writes them in a manner that just gives them a bit of decency. Smiling at George.
Amazing.
HIJJA Ashraf, plugging, how does someone subscribe to that WhatsApp group to be able to receive these stories? HIJJA Ashraf, yeah, mutings and those already. But then some about how to subscribe kwezo good WhatsApp just in case.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
To hear a lot from the women, because for not to be situations, but women have to handle a lot, especially where they move just down. Yes, about the WhatsApp group and subscription.
Okay, my WhatsApp group is called Team HIJJA Ashraf Simogerere. We have a VIP, and then we call it General Happiness. Every day, I give a chapter. Every day, I give a chapter from Monday to Saturday. Monday to Saturday. So when you are subscribing, I'm going to give you the number on which to send the money. Either you want the that is the VIP or the General Happiness. Then they will add you on it. From November up to today, so far we have 23 stories.
Wow.
And these 23 stories are real
life
living stories.
Yes.
So when you need a chapter or a story behind, or that you missed the story, you have to pay 500 per chapter. 500 per chapter also will be
500 shillings, not 500 pounds. Or
not pounds, yeah. 500 Uganda shillings.
No, for 500 shillings, you can get a chapter. Or is there is that for the VIP or the General Happiness?
For if you get for a missed chapter,
yes,
it's all the same. VIP, there is no comments. You just read.
Wow.
The VIP, there are no comments. In the other,
how much do the VIPs pay for that, for the subscription?
Is that 20,000? Sorry,
20,000 shillings. Is that per month?
Per month.
20,000 pounds, 20,000 shillings per month, and you get
month. Those are 26 episodes. Yeah.
Or you receive, or you pay your 500 per episode.
Exactly, to receive what you missed. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Stay there. Conversation, there will be questions for you, and you can always, raise your hand and come in case what point. All right. I can see Ismail disappeared, so I'll go to Joy while we get Ismail. Ismail's hand was up for so long. Joy, since we've had two men Now probably it's good to have a lady's voice in there. Joy, good evening and welcome to the conversation. Time is 30 minutes, or that's 9:30. It's the program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. This is live on 75W Radio and live on Uma Connect. And yes, hello Joy. Hello Joy. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hello. Mine is going to be a bit a different perspective. Very interesting topic this evening. My name is HIJJA.
Hi Joy.
Ndi mukungu wa Kabaka ku byobulamu ndi doctor. Mbeera wano.
Yes.
Kati perspective ya marriage. I happen to work in Bangladesh for about 5 months, and Bangladesh is a staunch Muslim country. Naye bwe nali Bangladesh kyanewuunyisa nnyo nti most of the people there, the ones that interact with, both in the big towns and in the rural towns, very far from the capital, they were all, the Muslim men all had, but polygamy is so common. Another thing, maybe not marriage, again, which I discovered in that very Muslim community practicing Islam really, is this going for, in Uganda, people borrow money and go there. But then their perspective of interpreting the HIJJA is that after in Bangladesh was a bit different, that after people have paid their debts and they've settled, and then they go and pray. So in my opinion, it seems like I think the religion is practiced differently, depending, I think, with our other cultures. Uganda culture, I don't know which culture. So I think there's a lot of mixing up of, that's my opinion. Kubanga nali really surprised that, oh, how come people have one wife? Ngati tebaina na 2 wives. Ngati chiri common ngawe chiri Uganda.
Right.
So I think there's a mixing up of people picking and choosing what they want to do to their advantage. Netulowooza nti biri normal naye ndowooza, I think that I don't know.
So,
That's
Joy,
my personal opinion.
Joy,
It should be really the values, and I think the religious value of the Muslims and do everything for them equally. In other words, I think it's almost impossible to do that. So
Joy,
perspective
it looks like your line is not so good.
And it just hit me so hard. I haven't been to countries like Malaysia and what. Those are also very strongly Islam countries, but I don't know if they practice their religion the way we do it in Uganda. A contribution yang, it might be a bit a different approach.
What I was trying to ask you was regarding these cultural mixes. Well, sometimes it's religion here in it out, and then you find when it comes to people's practicing, you find that actually the story is different in terms of reality. It's very true. Islam, just like Christianity, you'll find that there are mixes of culture, the cultural tradition, whatever cultures are within the church. For example, I have a strong church aspect within our family that I can actually sort of refer back to. Then we got a running your church in terms of the catechists, running whatever elements they integrating that were sort of traditional, and they found their way to the religious scheme of things. However, taking note of your consideration on Bangladesh, probably it would be good to sort of see how that plays out once they are out here. Because I think that Deborah did raise that question. Very interesting point. Joy, have you interacted with the Bengali community in the UK? But thank you very much for that contribution. Zaimam, you have been waiting long as well. Thank you very much, Joy.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته يا شيخ.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الحمد لله. Nsanyuse nnyo okuddamu okulaba n'okuwuliza n'okubeera ku foramu nga mpuliriza baganda bange ne bannyinaffe aboogezi bonna n'abateesa ne bamasheekh. Bamasheekh mbeebaza nnyo naye ate ne mbasaasira nnyo. Naawe Sheikh Kassim nkusaasira nnyo kubanga tugenda tube foramu zino wallahi n'owulira ennaku.
Microphone yo eringe droppings mzee Imam. The microphone there was the droppings
Okay. Dekad.
Aha, iko myeho kati. Yes sir.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Ennaku gye nfuna tugenda ndifuna conversation zino si lwe lusoose ate ze lugenda okusembayo naye ennaku gye nfuna mwe bamasheehi abamanyi wallahi abantu ne bava ne batwa hadith ne batwa aya ne batwa naye nga bemuziwa tebali ready kuzireceiving abo bemuzituwadde. Kati nempulira ennaku nti tusobola okubanga abantu betwogera nga be bakyamu kubanga ekiisu ya marriage eri personal. Kati webeera personal bwe tugireeta mu public nga kati nga basista baffe batakikkiriza tosobola kubagamba ku forum eno nti aya ya Quran egamba bweti kati nga Sheikh avuddeyo nerabidde erinnya avuddeko then brother Ashraf ayoka agendeko. Wallahi ayogedde ebintu mu simple English. Naye bw'oba olina sister wano ayina ekizibu nebba oba n'omusajja okuwasa omukazi owokubiri wallahi era ojja kuwulira tebalifaalinga ku shehe byatugambye balifaalinga ku taata yakola bwati brother yakola bwati naye ne batamanya nti ensonga eno sife twagitandikawo ng'abasiraamu yaliwo before busiraamu kubaawo abakyagikola abasinga obungi ne bagikola ne mu haram be bakyasinza okuba nga si basiraamu. Njagala kuwa example wano mu America edda kyali kiva okulaba omuntu ng'akyogerako naye kaakati show ziri ku TV ya America TV sister wife seeking sister wife ng'abakyala bayamba ku basajja baabwe black white newuunya naye nga abasista baffe bajja mu nsi zino America UK wonna bakopayo mpisa nkyamu zokka tebakoppa buno obuntu obutinitini babugatte ku mpisa ze tulina. Wewe obusiraamu tetulina kigenda gatako kubanga it's a way of life ate oyina obukkiriza nga obusiraamu bwobutegedde bulungi n'ogenda buli one thing at a time. Kino ensonga ya marriage tejja kutawanya. Lwaki? Kubanga otegedde ani agyogerako ani yagituwa benefits zirimu ze ziriwa. Brother wange Ashraf agyogeddeko n'abawa story ayina nyingi wallahi abantu abatambuddeko abali mu nsi zino eziri advanced mujja kiraba nti obuzibu obuliwo. Nze before I got married by the way nze ndi mu America naye ndi married with 2 wives. Kati zino stories owulira nti omusajja tasobola kulabira baana tasobola kulabira bakyala. It's an individual issue, it's an individual weakness oba it's an individual those over upbringing simanyi upbringing. It's like there is something wrong. Basista kyebalwanyisa ate nga tekisobola kuvaawo. Nze nga after all nze ngamba nti basista the more they fight this issue the more they lose. Kubanga nze 17 years ago nga mpasa abantu bonna be nawasa nabo abasinga bonna all our friends non-Muslims they were all in monogamous marriage. They are all divorced, all of them. So naye bw'otuula nabo kubanze lwe nawasa omukyala wange owokubiri then it was a backlash. So it was my responsibility okuddayo mu communities gye mpangaliramu. We had a discussion. They had to understand non-Muslim and Muslims. Kubanga even non-Muslim, they had to disclose to me that they also have second wife, third wife. Non-Muslim here in the US. Because they know that I am upfront and I'm willing to discuss this issue in a broader audience. So biranti bwe tubeera ku forum bweziti bali basista baffe ne batavaayo kweyogerako kubanga bo bamanyi kye baliko abali mu second wife or third wife bamanyi kye baliko kyova olaba nti ku forum zino tebajjaako nnyo okwogera bingi Bana basista babatali abali mu monogamous oba divorced oba bad experience marriages be bajja wano ne boogera naye basista bafe abaliyo oba basiramu basiramu abakituddemu baba manyi benefit. After all, Sheikh Kassim Nsendaba nti wano nga mu UK oba mu US tetulinawo full time wife, bonna be tulinawo ba part time wife, nati ne bagana babeere full time wife ninga bali mu half part time marriages. Kubanga omukyala abasobogera n'akola essaawa 10, omusajja n'akola essaawa 10, time eriwo ya family eriwa, akomawo nga talina budde bwo. So
ogaseko okubiri obona time obogenze kugibalance ngora nazine 10 ezitaddewo nazo ozitebemu 5
it's better kubanga wojjira ono nga talina time yo mukowo already. Obeera ne second wife, you go to that wife abadde ayinawo off day.
Yes.
Kubanga tosobola kudemandinga full husband nga you are part-time wife, you know. Ninga chenkome ekyensembayo nakyo Sheikh Kassim ne mashehe baffe nti mbasaba Allah abawo obugumu ensonga eno mujogereko mulamu bulambulukufu nga bwe mujogereko essaawa eno oyo ajja okugifunamu benefits ajja gigendamu ate atagikkirize. Wallahi statistics zitugamba wano Washington DC recently batugamba nti statistics okumala abaana abawala n'abakyala bali mu DC they have to marry 10 to 11 women to one man. How many? 10 to 11 women to one man. Okumalawo abakyala na abawala n'abakazi abali mu Washington DC.
Let me go. So there's HIJJA bleeding in there. Yes.
Nti Allah tutaasire basisa bategeere ensonga ebatwala mu marriage bwebanga sente then bagenda nga bagenze mu business.
Mzee Imam was there with the new perspective. And it was good because one of the questions I asked was about the men who are in these kind of relationships. What would you say has been your challenge? What you never challenge? You know, we are stressed in the world, but no beta. What now we have say waka na kendera.
Sikategedako.
Well, let me put it this way. But then, one of the questions I asked as part of this conversation, having this open conversation, is in having this conversation, because there are men who are in these relationships where you have more than one wife, and good enough, you've come in with your own experience, not even back in Africa, but you are in the United States of America. Your example, you have laid it out, and I'm trying to say, women who are raising particular concerns about, stresses the vitamin as a husband of 2 wives. One, what have been the benefits from this for you? And 2, what have been the stresses? Is there a moment where you feel like
Wallahi, alhamdulillah. See, kuva nawaso omukyala wange owokubiri, wallahi alhamdulillah. N'abaana betulina sometimes balowooza nti tuli fake. Kubanga tebatulabangako nga tulwana, tebatulabangako nga tuli stressed, tebatulabangako nga tulina enkenyera yonna. You know,
between your 2 wives or with
between my 2 wives, yes.
Right. Okay.
Abana betulina abakulu bagenda batuwa ne bagamba, but you guys are so fake. You never argue, you never fight. How come? At least mulwane mutulabe nti mwanyize. You know, the thing is, ngabasisa besija bajja ko benefit egamba nti you have to do it the right way. Kubanga bw'okireta mu butuufu bwakyo n'okinambula bulungi n'obagamba this is what I'm about to do, this is what I'm doing, oba ne bw'okikola nga tosoose kuteeka kwamamaza, how do you say it? Okulangirira. So bw'obanga tolangiridde n'okikola, then later on, then you explain your position. Wallahi, you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed. There's a group of Rwandese women that knew that I had a second wife. So they came with an attack. So we sat down, we talked, and they are like, Wanshachi jihajati. I mean jihad. What it is what they see, people fighting, people neglecting their children. It's not what it is, not the essence of marrying a second wife, you know. But after explaining to them, they were like, why can't you find me a hajjati? In our side, it's not allowed. Why can't you find me a haji? So that is not for hajis, it's for a normal human being who wishes to have a second wife. So the difficulties of this is a normal thing, like you commute from one place to another. That's a difficulty that I see. There's another
And
example.
so my second question was, what stresses, is there a moment where you've had really rough because of having two wives? Are there particular stresses?
Wallahi, my brother, it's the same stress. You get some place they think you ate, and then you go to where you are supposed to think you already had dinner, and then you sleep without because Jova to agara bala visa.
Yes.
Jova to agara bala visa. I
Ne Jova
didn't exposing any Jova to badi tona kudia.
Yes.
Had no coffee, I'm no way of chai, no coffee, no yakumugati, no way bakanga tokozichi.
Barakallahu fikum, Imam. I'll just bring in Sophia Mnangagwa. Fantastic perspective there. Thank you very much, Madam Imam. You actually brought in an element that was missing in the conversation so far. Imam Kasozi nkakasa okutu ne Sheikh Suleiman Chibuka ne HIJJA. You are listening into this. Definitely, we shall have the reaction once we hear from Sophia Mnangagwa, and then we can start reacting to this. It would be very interesting to hear from a woman who is living in this kind of relationship where she is a co-wife. It would be very fantastic. Please raise your hand. Let's hear your own perspective. Sophia, you have the microphone.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Are you a co-wife?
No, I'm not. It's just, I was just giving an example. Like people saying, oh, here are women this in this country and that. It takes us back to not having enough money. If you have enough money and you're able to look after these women, there is no way you're going to find a problem. As a nurse, I was looking after this guy. He was coming from an Arab country and he was not well, but he had two wives. One could come in during the day to look after him, and another one could come during the night. And these two really got on very well, even their children. But everyone at the hospital were like, these are really co-wives. At first, everyone thought they were sisters until when the husband said, those are my wives. So, but because these people are rich, when the two wives told us the story, you could know they've never even suffered. They say their husband looked after them and they don't think even they will repay him. Unfortunately, when he passed away. But they said he looked after them very well with the children. They never worked, they never suffered, they never argued, and they shared a house in Qatar. But can this happen in our community, whereby some men even don't want to look after the other family? Once they get another family, or in Kampala or here, they forget about another family one, if they have family too. And this is causing a lot of problem, because this family will start hating the others because they're paying more attention to the others. And that's not what the Quran says, because it justifies and it says you have to treat them in this, not say equally, but justly. But when you look at our community, people are concentrating on saying, oh, they told us to have 3, 4, 5, but you're not looking after them very well. And in this story, when the woman told us their husband looked after them with the children all went to school. They had 10. The other one had 5 and the other one 5. And she said, sister, we never feel like we are co-wives. We are like sisters. And so it's rare to find such stories in our community, because once men in our community get another wife or someone else, they start causing havoc. They don't want to be good leaders because they don't have enough money. They start telling stories. This one does this. And this creates too much problem. Some of them even, they leave their first wives because the second one has told them, oh, I don't want that one. She's doing this to me, doing that to me. You know, this whatever shirk. But if you're a man and you believe in the Quran, how could your wife, the second one, who comes and tells you, this one is bewitching me, and you accept that? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's my
alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
But then actually after Imam Bekachi, you'll come in and interact with them.
Okay.
Imam, you've had all of
Naam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Indeed, a very interesting discussion, and I'm looking at it from two perspectives. The first perspective is my area of study, sociology. The second perspective is me as a community leader. all the views expressed here are present. The bad thing is to have a blanket cover that may I have 2 wives, may I have 2 wives. And I'm very certain all my wives can go to each other's bedroom with no question, much as they have 2 different houses, because it is accepted. I also know several of my brothers here who have 2 wives, others actually 3, and the relationship is normal. But having listened to all, the problem is there is a book I was trying to recall, but it deals with, I think, attitude measurement and something. I was trying to recall the book, and I have the book, but I couldn't find it. I wanted to look at it, and then I tell you the title so that people could go and read. What I have had here is really, largely it is attitude. And if the attitude is negative, whatever you do will remain negative. Number 2, men who marry and when they are marrying are hiding, they are basing it on the way you are treating them as their wives. And you have sometimes even told them, you will see. So you see, these are issues that we need to look at. One of our sisters was concerned that children's mental wellness. You see, if you are a good parent, because I know even people who are in monogamous marriages, what you are talking about, they have. Children are stressed, wives are stressed, husband are stressed, and there's no second wife. Even sometimes no cheating at all. But because of suspicion, you see, in above than ithmi, falatajasasu. You see, this issue of being suspicious, even when it does not exist, actually sometimes wives or husbands lead to their spouses to do things they wouldn't do because you are nagging them. When the wife comes in late, ovamba sajja. When the man comes in late, ovamba chala. When the man has not eaten, walidde dambakazibo. All these are the causes of the stress some of our people are facing. Then the issue of money. People are saying money, money, money. Money is not the issue. Very many people have money and they have failed to marry, but they have money. Reason, siba antubalamu. You see, so my sisters and my brothers, I would ask you that take back go back the situation. Many men have 2 wives or 3, not because they are Muslims. I call them typically African husbands. And many of our sisters who have had a problem of meeting African husbands as their wives, as their husbands, they are the ones who are suffering from, they have this stigma, and it has brought a lot of stress to them. So we need also to adjust our mindset. Then culture and religion. The religion, as it is written, states ideal situations, and it gives you the range in which to operate. It is you to adjust. The example of Bangladesh you have given, the example of Senegal, the one who gave Senegalese communities here. And the reason why it is like that, they have all accepted. Because for me, I know, for example, my father had 3 wives in the same house. Okay, and we all grew together. Then you will also meet some community, some families in here in Uganda, where you will not even know ani azalani. And there are many of them. There are extremely many.
Stella Wanderema did mention it here in the chat room.
Yes,
saying that she grew up
Sisters for in their bigger family. she can tell you that up to now, kati oyinza obutamanya ani azaala Hasifa, ani azaala Mariamu, ani azaala Nifa, ani azaala Zaidi. But they're from the what? And some of them have, some have one wife, others had two. So the situation is how have we decided to live this life? And then my sisters, largely what I have had, recently, one of the people I clashed with a lot was Matembe. But today when we meet, we are on the same page because later she realized that the practice we do and the intention, okay? May I remember, many of the corporate ones, the ones we are talking with now here, they had a very negative attitude towards us, especially those of us who were appealing some of these issues, until they saw what we did in practice, and they became our friends because they realized, let us not judge men, Muslim men, according to what some men are doing. Because what you are describing is not Islam at all. It's not Islamic culture, it's not Islam at all. You are just describing people's habits. And these habits contradicting the teachings of Islam. Okay? So if they were really doing practice, if they are doing Islam, they would know, Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan. Okay? Two, last thing I want to say. The last thing I want to say, even equity, equality, and fairness, as our Sheikh Chibuka has clearly put it. Many people confuse equity with equality. Okay? So when, for example, if you have two wives, one has 4 children, another one has 2 children. Okay? Equality would mean if I'm going to buy meat in every home I take from, equity would mean I consider the numbers that are there in relation and make those ratios. Okay, and that therefore I am using those ratios. It becomes fairness. If I use the other one, I said no, equal, then I will be unfair to the other one that has many members in the household. So those are issues we need to go back and look at them strictly. And my brothers and sisters, let us not put
emotions.
Okay.
No, I was just going to bring in Becca Chinji very quickly and then go to Sheikh Sulaiman Chibuka on his reaction. And then we continue with the conversation. Becca, you have the mic. Becca, please come in with your comment, and then I'll come to Sheikh Chibuka. Please, ladies, I need to hear from you. The ladies have gone quiet now. I don't know whether it is giving up. There's a message in the chat room. Haj Ashraf Semogere, you did not give us your subscription details. Could you please put them in the chat room so that we can find them after Maghrib prayers? Haj Ashraf. Becca, please go ahead, and sorry for that interruption.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi. You've been listening into the conversation.
I've been listening. Na yes manyu bangenda kubaza mabega, but lwaki nina ekintu kye neebuuza, lwaki nti abakyala bano basista baffe bano okubeera kugamba okufuna second wife bakivumirira naye ng'ate some of them nga wagenze ku byekiyaaye kagambe like okudatinga ku side eyo bikibwe bityo, they would welcome that. Naye ate bw'ogamba nti nno omuwoowe omuwase kifuuka ekintu kye bataagala, naye ng'ate nga wagambye nti ofune omuntu ku side eyo balaba bo bagamba they would rather nabeera nga datinga bikibwe bityo, naye ate bw'omugamba okuwasa ate nekifuuka tabu. Simanyi oba mwakyogeddeko oba naye nga osanga abasista nga bali oke n'okubeera n'omwami we nga mufumba eyo naye nga naye ali naye nga tibw'omugamba nti omuwoowe kiba kikola ki, baba tebakiwelcoming. Olowooza kiva ku ki? Ekibuuzo kye mbadde mbuuza, simanyi oba Sheikh Ashraf oba Imam Kasozi.
That's actually a question. Tujja kugijjawo Haj Ashraf plus n'abakyala. I think it will be interesting to hear naddala abakyala ab'omulembe guno abakakyo kano, but some of them actually don't want commitment. Bawulira nga bwe wagenda mu kintu n'aga nti agenze committinga actually basidekika ebintu bafuna bingi nnyo omala okumuwasa n'omuteeka waka ate nekiba nga takyasobola bifuna nga wawadde abifuna ng'akyali eri ku mabbali. Fanaudhu billahi dhalik, of course, Omani, the Islamic way would have been the actual right way. Even the Christian way would be not dating outside marriage, but rather getting to get married. Sheikh Chibuka, come in, please. But that's a question I think I'll flag to the members. Remember, the program is Come, Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. It's exactly 10 o'clock. Oh my goodness. And the conversation has been very fantastic. I thank you very much, for a very interesting deliberation so far. Emotions mixed with reality, and we are still listening to your take on the situations. Sheikh Suleiman Chibuka, you have the microphone, sir.
Sheikh, Jazakallah khair. I don't really think I have a lot to say, given that Imam Kassim, I think, has just deliberated everything that I wanted to say. But I think I just have to raise one point, which I think we have to bear in mind, that the debate about polygamy, I don't think is in any way different from the debate about other aspects of the social institutions of life, whether it is child upbringing, whether it is divorce, because all these are intertwined. Once you talk about marriage, it will bring up all other aspects of life. So they are going to be there until the day of judgment. The reality is that if we are to ensure that one of the maqsad, one of the objectives of God's guidance in this world is to ensure a legitimate and a normal continuity of what we call progeny of the human race, it is better served if it is done under normal circumstances. And with existing numbers, of course, there is not going to be any solution other than at least everyone allowing room, being ready to sacrifice and to be considerate, to be understanding, and to be part of that struggle that always, brings the family and the parties in the marriage towards what you would call, I would call, the marriage equilibrium, which is very, very difficult. Just like an economy, always a normal economy is always working towards equilibrium. It will never, ever, ever precisely be at equilibrium point. So it is natural these shocks are going to be there, but which brings me to the second point. We should not try to localize the Quranic references and guidance and think that what is being done, what the Quran says, is exactly what is mirrored in the cultural practices, whether in Uganda, whether in Kenya. And what we see, what the Muslim community is behaving in pursuit of this meaning is exactly what is intended. Therefore, it is unworkable. I think that is wrong. It is very important that Imam Kassim mentioned there is a difference between cultural practices and also the religious guidance. We have to be very careful about that. So our failure to live the expectation does not mean the expectation is not clear. But communities fail, and our failure should not actually cost us the effort to pursue those long-term objectives upon which the stability of the society, anchors. Where you have a stable marriage that is, blended in consideration, meaning both husband and wife, whether as the first partners, will understand that we have always to be ready to create room for other people as part of the solution, the social problem. Because just have to imagine yourself, you are the one who was to come in as a second one. If the first wife never allowed you, if he was as that kind of woman who Imam Kassim mentioned, that wallahi, I know of a brother who used to come to me and say, wallahi, my wife said to me, if I ever try, I'm going to lose my manhood. And I know that for sure. And she was determined and would never ever dare until, subhanAllah, the marriage.
Would that be through witchcraft, or is it cutting it off, bobbiting it, as they say?
Well, that is it. And that is it. And we have stories of those kind of things, people pouring hot water, acid on on otherwise, simply because they cannot bear it. But the reality is that is a failure on the part of that sister, of that wife. She cannot accommodate it. But on the point that is men who are failing the institution, then it goes back to our personal weaknesses, which should not be used as the actual translation of the spirit that the Quranic verses are driving, to achieve, to ensure that there is equity, at least to a certain extent, so that at least the number of people, everyone has got a fair share of what defines, fulfilling life. But otherwise, our failure to do this, or our refusal to allow others to come into the families, will lead to nothing other than an emancipation of some of the contemporary challenges we have today, where girls will end up, looking for other solutions, and that fits into the new phenomena that, as we all know very well, because they find satisfaction in their, gender, equals, because they cannot find it elsewhere, or the whole situation appears to be completely a failure. Sheikh Kassim, you and I know very well, even up to now, you could hear the tones, how many of our youngsters, alhamdulillah, they are now changing. They used to say, wallahi, I will never ever marry a Ugandan, man, Ugandan boy. Because the first generation, probably the way they saw us treating our wives was not exemplary and was not motivating them to remain in the society. But alhamdulillah, they're going to have to realize that actually it does take one person. It takes the two couples to make it work. You don't really have to look at the other people and think we're going to be having the same way. So we really have to continue with this. We cannot underwrite the benefits because I have failed or Sheikh Kassim has failed. The meaning is there, but we just have to be considerate to not localize, the Quranic meaning, and attach the specific community that we see. And the sister, just last one moment, the sister who talked about her experience in Bangladesh, there are so many other things probably she might have picked up, about which our community as Ugandans, we are not, let me use this word, we're not fluid enough, we're not flexible enough. For us, it's enough to find another, for example, Nakakonge in Masaka, even she's Christian, I cannot marry her because as Suleiman Kibuka Kakonge, I belong to Mbwa family. Therefore, any Nakakonge elsewhere, whether in Rwanda, Zambia, that she belongs to Mbwa family, I cannot marry her. Those are cultural kind of rigidities. When you go to a Muslim family, the sister would know, I don't know that she doesn't know, that you are actually allowed to marry a certain degree of your cousins within the family. Within the family is permissible in Islam. Now, I know we are not ready as a community to go to that, but what you see in some communities are all intertwined into culture more than what the religion teaches. And that should not be an example that defines the spirit of our dear guidances of the Quran.
Thank you very much, sir. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Stella Wanderema, Stella, you had your own first experience with polygamy, and it wasn't in Islam specifically. But rather, I would like even to hear your own take about tonight's conversation. Stella, good evening. Hello, Stella. Are you at work? Or... Hello, Stella. Let me get to Nora. Stella, I was hoping that you are there. You wanted to share that experience of polygamy, although it was coming from a Christian family. Her grandfather, who had 3 wives, and they were all existing. Mu'ar says no human is worth losing yourself over. I think it's regarding the injury that is caused to some men by jealous women who would rather, lose the man instead of sharing him with another woman. Imam Kassim says in Islam, marriage becomes compulsory for all those that are able to do so. By HIJJA, all right, that was a comment on HIJJA Shraf's contacts, rather subscription. Zay Imam says money has a little play in marriage in general. It's a good motivator, but not necessarily the overall aspect. Stella, if you are able to come on, please, I'd just like to hear your own take into the conversation. I've seen newcomers on here. I've seen HIJJA, Aliyah. Even Ismail Mugisha. Well, the program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. Isma in the studio, please, if you could just play that one clip of the 2 ladies who are, co-wives, and the way they've managed actually to come up with a very, very serious platform. It's not just for public consumption or for subscriptions or viewers, but they actually mean it. Isma, if we can have that clip while getting Stella on, I think would be very, very welcome, please. Debs, I'm not ignoring you. It's just that I wanted to spread out to allow more people to have part of the conversation, because I think we've sort of had a view, at least from you. I wanted to sort of make sure we were getting to hear from as many of you as possible, because all of you on this conversation are actually important people in the conversation. So I didn't want anyone to feel like they were less important in the conversation. Yes, Stella, are you there? Stella not there. Sumaya Nansuga. Hello, Sumaya. Sumaya, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. For some people who are not used to this conversation, this program, the way it works will just come to you at random and just, get to hear your own view. Stella has gone quiet. I think maybe she's at work. I can't seem to get her to unmute. But I think I'll just check out on the messages. Isma, whenever you're ready, NK says, there was Laila Kaddu. You put your hand up and then disappeared. Please come on. Or did your question get answered the moment Sheikh Chibuka started speaking? Laila Kaddu, please, if you can unmute yourself. I think you had, the clip is ready. And then we'll come to you, Laila Kaddu, off the back of the clip. Yeah, so these are two co-wives. And they've started this website, a channel called OutstandingPersonalRelationships.com. It's a website. And to see how actually they first got to hear about each other's, getting or becoming the second wife and how that played out. Let's just have about 3 minutes of that, and then we'll come to you, back to you to hear your own comments. Please go ahead, Isma. I hope the sound works.
I'm Coach Fatima. We're co-wives and co-founders of Outstanding Personal Relationships. So now, okay, whoever follow us on like our IG page, on our Facebook page and everything like that, we've been getting some awesome comments. We see you guys. We see you. Now here's the deal. We've been getting a number of questions about how are y'all friends? Yeah. How do you do it? Okay, we're going to get into that. First, we're going to talk about polygyny because we're co-wives. Yes. We're in polygyny. So the thing is, we had a question of first impressions. What was your first impression of polygyny?
Okay. We are big fans about telling the truth and being authentic and transparent. Now, 20-year-old Fatima, no, polygyny, which would require 20-year-old me.
This is what my hair looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. When I started to lose my hair, I felt like I was losing my identity a little bit.
Sorry about the advert.
For me, just having kind of a full hair of hair and being able to just style it the way I want.
To share my husband with somebody. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not sharing my husband with anybody. What are you talking about? So now I'm 44 and she's sharing. I'm sharing him with the world, and I always say that we share him with the world. Right. We don't just share him with just us, because he had parents, his siblings, his children, friends, and things like that. But initially, I was shook when I found out. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to do that. It's crazy because it was so different for me. Polygyny, I studied about polygyny and read about polygyny before I even thought about polygyny. So I was like, yo, that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? I was like, okay, then I gotta be responsible, the only one responsible for this husband. It was a lot of stuff in my head. I was like, this makes sense because of the community that it builds, and it was a whole different level for me. So I was like, yo, I can rock that. Sign me up. I see the wisdom in it now, because like I'm older, and I feel like now I'm like, oh man, I needed this time when, like your alone time.
Yeah, hey, I get that too.
I needed that alone time. 20-year-old me didn't know I would need that.
The crazy thing is, you talk about the alone time. I didn't think about the alone time until like later on. But see, I have little babies. I don't know what that feels like anymore. So we're going to leave that alone. Yeah. I haven't had that long time yet. So yeah, polygyny, we actually had different views on it to begin with. So I was like, yo, I can rock this. I can get with polygyny because it made a lot of sense to me with community-wise and everything like that.
I mean, it made sense. It's funny because I'm like, I read it and I studied it with different women, and they were like, well, I'm like, wait a minute, he could do that to me too. What? Hold on. It was cute for somebody else, see, but it wasn't cute for me. So I saw like wisdom, but sis, that's for you. I'm like, for you. I can't deal with that, so I'm not going to deal with that. But I love it now that I've matured into that level.
Hey, let's talk about that part. Our views on each other. Hey,
my initial view, I'm going to be honest. The first thing that came to my mind was she's tall. And then I found out she's only 2 inches taller than me. It was the heels. And I'm like, what what is she, like 5'10"? I mean, I was shocked. Like, and but all jokes aside, I thought she's tall. But initially, I was like, she smiles a lot.
Oh,
I said, and I thought that was so rare to see somebody present happy and show up in the room happy. And everybody go, oh, she's so smiling. I'm like, is she from another planet? Because I don't know. My grumpy grandmother, bless her heart, I love her to death, but she wasn't a smiley type lady. So to see somebody like genuinely like bring happy into the room, I was like, this is refreshing. And I thought you were a super extrovert.
That's so crazy. Yeah,
Wrong again.
A lot of people think that too. That's crazy. And she said, now, this is the first time I'm hearing this, y'all. It's real talk. That's so awesome. Because my first impression was like, yo, she is so nice. She is so cool. She's such a sweetheart. And the interesting thing is, I'm going to talk about the polygyny part. I was like, oh man, I'm about to have this sister in Islam. She's been in Islam for like forever. She can teach me this stuff. My daughter had a daughter in a previous marriage. I'm like, oh, my daughter gonna have sisters. It's gonna be awesome and amazing and great. And yeah, the first year wasn't set up.
Isma, if you can stop this, please. Thank you very much. That's just a bit of a hint into the conversation regarding co-wives and how they got to meet each other, they got to know about each other. But I think one important thing that actually stands out is the way, it looks like the way the husband handled this. It was not secretive, so they got to know each other. And, but Laila Kandu is saying, wow, when you afraid, sister, and you share one man, Kizibu. That definitely, I think, sort of speaks volumes just in terms of Laila Kandu's view on the topic. Nora says she's at work, she can listen in but won't be able to speak. Okay, and I think someone here, that was Tarifa Twaha, who's saying mashallah. I think she's seeing the sense in that. Sophia Murango was saying she's advising against marrying cousins. This is one area where the Baganda got it absolutely spot on. The highest congenital birth disorders are found in communities that marry cousins. You have got Mwanaisha's hand up. Mwanaisha, why not come back? I'll come to Laila Kandu. I've already warned you. I'll be coming to you, but it looks like, well, your view is almost laid out there. Badibu Katemba, let's hear yours that is not Katemba. Mwanaisha, to you, and then I'll go to Laila Kandu.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa
barakatuh. It's not Katemba, that's reality. That is reality. Ate ekyo badde njagala kyogerako mu ngeri ya stories. Buli omu gy'abadde aleta story in different background.
Yes.
Because I believe there's love. I believe nti abantu muyinza okubeera awamu ne mubeera nga mukola ki nga mwagalana naye kiva ku ki. At the end of the day, it comes to the one person who reunited you. What kind of love has he brought in that relationship? Ate ekyo kiviira mu kusooka nga bwe twayogedde, was he open? Bibadde byankukutu? Kubanga ono omukyala asoose bw'oba omuyisizza bulungi bannange abaami muleke tufuna mu bubi. Bw'oba omukyala omuyisizza mu bulungi, omuwadde hakki ye, omuwadde buli of course tosobola kutuukiriza buli kyayagala, naye the most important thing yeri oba nkigambe ntya simanyi bwe njja ki-explaininga mu Luganda, okumukola omuntu ne yeerabira ate n'omwagaza ekintu. Secondly, abakyala bambi abasinga bakulidde mu nga basista babadde bagamba bakulidde mu families ng'akuzaala bamaama waabo naabona. Kati era naye ajja kumanya okuwasa omukazi omulala naye akirabanga kibonerezo kuba teyalaba mukwano. Bananga, I don't know if this is only in African culture. Sijja kyogera na African culture, in Baganda culture oba that's the only example gyenyinza okuwa. Okubanga olaba omuntu taata akula awaka, maama n'abanga you are a wife, your job is to kulabirira kuganga tulabawo mukwano. Taata akomyewo waka ayogera ne maama, kati abaana ne bakula nga balina ekintu ekyo that hatred in them. There's no love in families, a lot of Baganda families. Omusajja n'akula kudaye akomawo is oba nkigambe ntya talaga mukwano, abaana ne bakula nga tebalaba mukwano, kati nabo ne bakula n'ekyo ekintu ne bawasa, n'akula ng'amanyi that is how you treat a woman. Ate n'akitongezako kati ne kujjirako kino ekyokubiri ekyokuwasa omukyalo owookubiri. Ate ne kiyitirira kubanga there's no love. You look at those women who are talking, they will see Katemba, that is reality. There are people who live like that. Tell me which family in Uganda joyinza okusanga n'ogamba nti mu culture zaffe osanga abakyala nga beeyagala bwe bati, because me have seen that in Western countries, Abasenegal, Abanyarwanda, nga babeera bwe batyo wallahi nga beeyagala abakyala nga tusobola kumanya nti bajja n'abajja. It's because omwami omukwano gw'abalaga. Kateekawo there's gundi nti ono omukyala mukulu, ono muto, ono alina kufuna bino, kugamba n'okuba mateeka biki ebyo, gwe ng'otaddewo wali omukwano, everything goes smoothly. N'abaana nga bakula n'ogwo omukwano ne bamanya nti tusobola okubeera ne bamaama babiri, naye nga waliwo omukwano kyekintu ekikulu. Essente biki ebyo bijja later, tetuganye financial and what support, we need it, but when you put the love there, nze ngamba bino byonna bijja luvannyuma, ate bijja mpola, ate it wouldn't even matter.
Laila Kaddu, Mwana Aisha, can you respond? Laila Kaddu, I would like to hear your own take on that. Mwana Aisha, asante sana. Barakallahu fikum. That's a very nice one. Laila Kaddu. Laila, are you at work as well? Did you quote it? I wanted to get another perspective as we get close to this. Sharifa Twaha. Oh, Laila Kaddu has come. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Obiwulidde obirabye?
Mbiwulidde, nsobola kwanukula muganda wange Beeka. Kyagambye kyabasajja wale twe mukazi gwe balabirira nga side chick. Naye ke bakutaako bati empeta we bati nga bakusuula wali. Tasobola bakazi bagaana okukola kyaganze wakiri embeerayo. Eyo abadde Beeka. Then okuwasa omukyalo okwo abasajja bakikole mu butuufu bwakyo. Yogera tokukuta, yogera wadde tujja kukuba ebiso oba tukuyira amazzi agokya, naye tujja bali tukiveeko. Zano kiwulira nti after 4 years 5 years wawasa oba totubazeemu naffe magezi, n'ekirala oba otuyisizza bubi, ate bagenda ne bawasa akazi abakwe ne bakwogerako bubi.
Asooka kwonoona eri nga tannawasa, gwali badde okwogereza kweri ayogereza akusiiga,
ayogereza ng'ate ayonoona. Okitega naye wano ojja n'oyogera ati ngenda okwasa omukazi owookubiri, omu akyogera ne ddiisa agenda ddiggala. Naye tugenda ntumasa amasowaani n'atuwasa, naye tumala n'okikkiriza nti bawasizza. Okitegeera, naye ate bitray eyo eya years n'okitegeera. Naye nga toliyo ne family eziwasa, kati nze nja kugamba nakula ne HIJJA yange yagise mugenze bless him. Erina abakyala babiri at the time. Naye nga tetumanya ani azaala ani. Nga ffenna twaba mami Naalongo tubeereyo ffenna. Batwayo oli omukyala ffenna. Nze abamu nkuze ntegedde butegeeza ani azaala ani nga nkuze. Eyo family gye ziri. Naye ne z'abamaafe abaabonabona nabo gye bali. Naye kati omulembe gwaffe Sheikh Kayira baaba nze tongattako ne nkuleka bwentyo.
Onjogya amazzi?
N'olunaku lw'oŋŋamba nti ogenda kuwa nsubira mu nnyumba. Aho oba olaga wa? Wennyini w'okoma awo, batuna gy'olaga.
Oli clear, wobadde yogereraako Naalongo n'andeetera grapes ne juice wano nti
wama Naalongo kasubira waayogera nti ngatta n'ababiri amuleeta ku ddiiru kikyo ozadde abalongo. Nyekera namba 2 era nga kitomusubira mu nnyumba oyo oba olagawo.
Thank you very much, Laila. Leka twanguye tugenda almost at 5:30 where we should be.
Onoonya anaasomesa abaana Qur'an.
Naalongo tagimanyi, Naalongo yagisomesa dda tuleke agimanyi.
Beka Chinja agamba kunoonya to cancel you. Let's get Sharifa Twaha, and then I'll come to Ramzi Kojo. Ramzi Kojo, I've seen some new names here, new faces. Sharifa Twaha, please unmute yourself. Haji Ashraf Raika, Sharifa, you've been listening to the conversation from the very start. Let me hear your own take. What takeaway?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Salam wa rahmatullahi.
I would firstly go back to Becca's question. Sometimes I would say, I'm not dismissing anything he said, but however, some men, when they're approaching another lady, they kind of talk down on the other lady, which is a total turn off, for any reason. You cannot even give me any reason to justify that, because if you showed me a bad picture of the other person, how sure am I you also gonna respect me? How are you gonna talk about me after 5 years down the road? And the second reason why some women prefer not to is because some men can barely sustain the other family. Sometimes the lady already has like about 4 kids, 3 kids, but you're not even settled in one location. Today you're moving to another location to restart your life. Tomorrow you're moving to another location to restart your life. And at the same time, you want to go marry another wife. Why can't you just concentrate on your family? Make sure they're in a proper location. You're looking after them properly, and then you can later on thinking about bringing in another person. Make sure you can look after your family properly. Make sure they are settled down, because moving from one place to another and lack of care and provision to your family can not only break the family, can also torment your children's mental health. Today they're in a new school, tomorrow they're in a new school.
What's your position on a co-wife? You wouldn't mind?
My position, I wouldn't mind to be a co-wife if I know I'm marrying a good man, a man who's not gonna be one-sided, a man who is not gonna be listening to lies, a man who is gonna put us down and sit us down and talk things out together, not only listening to one person.
Thank you.
A man who is able to respect my family and respect me.
Fantastic. Barakallahu fikum. Thank you very much. Ramzi Kojo. Ramzi, you're a new entrant here into the conversation. Welcome to the conversation.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah. It's a very interesting conversation. After watching the two co-wives, wow, they had me thinking. I think the brother did a good job. The only thing I can say is that brothers that are planning and having second or third wives, they should be more upfront. Come straight to the sisters, let them know what they're about to do, and hold the end. Make sure they're responsible in every sense, communicate at every level. Just keep a happy family.
Yeah.
Does it not depend on the kind of relationship because sometimes we are not open with our wives, like you don't tell them everything. You know, sometimes it becomes easier if, well, let me put it this way. I find it much better to get married to your friend. In other words, I mean, if your wife is your friend, even where situations of the marriage are struggling, the friendship holds you together, binds you together. And that's the only person that you can actually find the strength probably to explain.
See, I can't argue with that. The best thing to do is marry a friend. If you marry a friend, you can always work through things. But the issue of polygamy sometimes can be very sensitive, even with a friend. They can get their feelings caught up here and there, but you do your best to communicate as much as you can and let them know what you're about to do and see how it goes. As long as you're doing it the right way. Allah will always make it possible.
He's telling me here in the chat room that Sheikh Kayira, once you announce that you have number 2, no more grapes or juice for you. I don't know whether that is a threat or
I don't know about
yes. All right. And Farida Ntege is saying, Orava topic Ramzi Mukamori. This is fantastic. Thank you very much, Ramzi.
You're welcome.
We are just wrapping up now. We just have about a minute and a half to wrap up tonight's conversation, which has been fantastic. I can only say Thank you to all of you. Mariam Chisitu, you are there. I'd like to hear your own take on this. Co-wives. Hello, Mariam.
Mom, salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you today?
I'm fine, alhamdulillah. How are you?
I've been seeing you listening into the conversation throughout, and I'd like to hear your own take. After hearing this, does it make any difference to how you felt before it?
Subhanallah, it's something that is conflicting in my mind. So I change my mind every day on how or I could ever handle it. But then listening to what everyone has been saying, really, it depends on individual circumstances. My take would be doing it right. And by right, I mean by following the riches of Islam. How is it supposed to be done? Because many a times from the experience we've listened in and heard from other people who've been through it, the man will just decide to cohabit or date or have a side chick, be in a relationship for some time, and then once they're caught, they decide to legalize it. So you've already, broken the trust. You've already created betrayal. But also, having listened to Layla, you kind of sympathize with the men. So if you come in and you say to me, I am getting a second wife, and you're fearful of my reaction, I might end up locking you in as well. So again, you emphasize with the men how they feel about it. So I don't know. It's a very interesting topic.
Actually, you've sort of preempted me, because that's what I was going to ask you. That's where some men, we've had situations where men have been that blunt, that straight, like Ramsey was saying, and came to their wives and sort of said, look, my wife, I'd like to bring, a co-wife. And suddenly that changed everything. Where you thought you're trying to be upfront and honest, you actually get a very negative reaction. Some of them have been thrown out of homes just for mere mentioning. It's not like they've even gone ahead to do it. They've just mentioned that it has ended up there. So it sort of creates a sort of a catch-22 situation where do I tell or do I not tell? Just like to be or not to be. And that's the real question that might have been.
It really depends, because at the end of the day, Kassim, so you know what they're capable of, or you know how they're going to react. So you go back.
Someone told me, Mariam, there are certain things that you can think you know someone,
Yeah.
and you can never know them until a situation like this has come up. Where, for example, Omazoko Mugatako Munne, or one like Mujara Twenza Kumanya Bao, Paka Amazoko Gatako, I now Kumanya Mutara, Paka Omazoko Mugatako. Until that point, because the reaction that follows that is the only way that determines now, what happens. So even where we think you know your person, I've been married for 24 years now, alhamdulillah. And to imagine that you can think you know someone until then you see the true color that you've never seen.
Until the grapes stop coming in. I said until the grapes and the juice stop.
Yes, so the juice might even stop. But imagine yourself now a sheikh on the door with your bin bag, and it's 7 o'clock and you have to leave, because otherwise then the police will be called in. There are those situations, and we pray to Allah sort of protect us against such situations. But you want to be as best as you can. But the realities are, regardless of whether we want it or not, I think there are certain things that women actually need to understand. And this is a conversation, like we say, it has not started today, it won't end tonight.
Yeah.
The issue is, one thing to know about men is, if a man gets another wife, it is not a failing on your part as the first wife. It is not to say that you have failed and therefore that's why someone is getting. It's within the nature of men. Just like some women will say, it is also within the nature of women that they can also sleep around. But it's within the nature. If you find the emotional side of a woman, by the time actually a woman sort of comes out, Naro is trying to protect her. But the situation is, it is within the nature of, like, if women understood these two elements, I think it would help a lot in having this conversation. And unfortunately, many women, end up divorcing, probably too young, losing a husband, too young, And then you suddenly find yourself going back into the market, a very competitive market where you have to try to find a man. And then suddenly the things that you thought, because you are leaning to this man of yours who you thought had to be yours alone, this man, Allah, all of a sudden you become marketable. It's so competitive. Suddenly the realities that you start seeing then become different from where you were in the first place. Suddenly you realize at your age of 27, 30, you're still too young to be without a man, but which man is going to marry a woman who is widowed or who has been divorced? Your priorities now start going down, because by the time you've had this situation, probably you have 2, 3 children. Which man is going to marry you as their first wife when you have 3, 2 children? You see, these realities, I think, is where I'm saying that sometimes you just sort of need to sort of take in a deep breath, throw away the emotions, try and think logically, although it does not happen very easily.
It's difficult.
If the wife, I think there is a message here, just before I let you go, Mariam, it's because men get second wives at the time when there are cracks in their marriage. That's why first wives become insecure. That's from Shakir. R says that most men will blame their choice of another spouse on the failings of the existing wife. And I think that's where the problem is. But I want women, at least tonight, if there is anything to take away from, at least from a man's perspective, as a woman, I think we are learning, and we've learned a lot tonight coming. The way someone communicates this kind of information also matters. But just put yourself in that situation, how you communicate bad news. Because for a woman that is getting a co-wife, that can't be good news. It is bad news. How we communicate bad news is important. Not everybody has the strength to sort of come and say, take you out, let's go out for a nice meal, we are eating, taking me out into a very beautiful restaurant, and then I bring the subject to say, my wife, I love you so much, but this is where I'm going to go. Not everybody has that sort of strength. So sometimes probably, and some men actually end up accidentally. You are in your sleep and then you dream about what you're supposed to have told the person face to face, and you fail to do that. So now you are in bed, you start dreaming about Nagundi. You end up mentioning Nagundi. Someone wakes you up in the middle of the night around 3 o'clock to ask you, Adi Nagundi. In your panic, now you end up revealing the Nagundi, which was not supposed to be the right time, but situations have sort of overwhelmed you. All these circumstances come into play. And I think as people, we need to be thinking through these things. We need to think about the women that you're going to take a co-wife to, but as a wife as well. Put yourself in that particular position. If you are the one who want to come in as the co-wife, how much are you bringing to the table? How much do you need this kind of companionship? There are so many women out there working so hard, rushing through their energies, throw out the men or refuse the men while still trying to build a career. You build a career, you see women here with beautiful houses, nicely done, posh cars, they have the money, but there's that man lacking. When that moment comes, you find that actually when that man comes, any man will do. Not any man just as a pick and play, but I mean any man who is there to accept you as a second wife becomes a very good alternative. And these are the realities that we have to be dealing with day in, day out. And while we are at it, while we are so powerfully against it, until God puts you in that particular situation, and quite often I've found it, that Allah has a way of doing this thing. Whenever you say, I can't do this, that's the next test that God puts in front of you. You find yourself in a situation where you almost have to go down that route. Sheikh Chibuka, I'd like you to come in on this, and then as we wrap up, please, and say good night.
Sheikh, Jazakallah khair. I think probably this will be my last contribution. And I think I've learned a lot from the views there. Emotional or emoted as the views might appear, but I don't think they are. It's just one way of expressing points. But because of the sensitivity involved, maybe some people know people have been affected by this, or maybe sometimes themselves, or the worry and the concern. And I think it leads to this kind of experience. But the reality is, we know that if we follow the right steps, which might be very difficult. I mean, the brother is erased, Ramsey, who mentioned about communication. I think communication is really very, very important in any process. But it's going to be something very difficult to bring up at a point of, looking for the second wife if there has not been a precedent to that. You haven't been a very good communicator where there are times of difficulty, in times of happiness. It's going to be very difficult. Why now? And that's why our sisters often accuse us. Why of all the topics, this one attracts so much attention? You always bring all the Quranic verses and you corner us, we're finding no way out. But I think communication is very important. I'm just mindful of what Imam Sheikh Mufti Menk mentioned about communication, highlighting the difficulty of breaking this news, because we struggle. No one knows the best way, the best canon to use to bring up this topic. He said that you might have HIJJA, this idea of, you may have had this idea for a very long time, but the day you know that you're ready, have your breakfast in a very cordial manner, and once you've stepped your foot outside and put your shoes on, tell your wife that I'm bringing your sister, and then run away, because so it's a very difficult topic to bring about. But what I know, I think communication is going to be very, very important. Secondly, I have noticed that in all this discussion, there is some kind of, we moved some goalposts. We all know the reality that it's not something that is done in bad spirit, but the way it's been done. So if we know that it's not been done in bad spirit, but people might struggle the way to present it, I believe that it takes a woman to make a man. Can we say that?
Yes.
Probably yes. I would say no. It takes a woman to make a man one, right? Just as it takes a man to make a woman one. So both men, husband and wife, have a role to play to correct the wrong that their spouses appear to be, presenting in the marriage. If that is the case, and they know that you will need the support of the other party, then it's better that you involve them and make sure that whatever he or she is saying, it might not be bad, but if there are issues that you feel are very serious, find ways of discussing them. If it requires a period of grace, let it not be rushed until the circumstances appear to be at least, such that are conducive. Maybe the risks being mitigated and the challenges may be less likely to happen. So that will be very, very important. And I believe that there are so many examples of families here in UK, but also in other parts of the world, which have been built by the sweat and the blood of women. And by that, I mean that women, we've seen examples of, mashallah, very, role model and exemplary sisters here who have accepted as a husband who might not be, doing well financially, but they see them the kind of character. So it shouldn't be the issue of the finance that should come up and become the stumbling block where the husband appears to be one wanting to fulfill the right that Allah has granted him, but also to play his role in doing what constitute the stability of the society. Because leaving those sisters away, and being denied the chance, wallahi, we are not spelling anything other than more troubles for the society, like it or not. Either she's going to be my sister, or it could be my daughter, or could be a woman who lost her husband, for some under tragic circumstances. But she feels that she needs someone, a companion in life. Why can't we take examples of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just to offer a sense of belonging and a sense of self-worthiness? We would take on wives who had already gone past the age of what you would call a consumable marriage age. But just to provide a sense of belonging, we need to do that. And wallahi, we can do it. We've got to be an I can do it community. Through sacrifice, we'll generate more good. We will generate more good, but we just have to be more understand. We need to.
Thank you very much, Timuka. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Hafsa in the chat room says, Nae Farida, and take it surprisingly. Zobako wife wali wataliwo, it's none of my business. I mind my mudara, which mudara is my husband. These men, they warriors are all caps. If we break all the windows, wallahi, if we are getting a second wife, nothing is going to stop them. Karenzi is Tracy. That is Hafsa coming in there very strongly. HB says with social media, if you do not tell her, the concerned citizens will forward everything and it happens. This is a conversation that is not going to end tonight. Definitely, it's just the start. Isma, if we can just have just the second clip, please, of the lady talking about the regrets that she's had in that, very briefly, and then we'll just close with that. I can only say thank you so much. But Umuar was seeming to ban with the idea of saying not every woman needs companionship. So where we think that women make money and they need company. Umuar, please, if you can do that while Isma gets us that final clip so that we wrap up and let you go to the next duties, please. Umuar, are you there? Umuar, you're talking about not every woman needs a companion or needs company. Probably I would love you to probably expound on that a little bit, please. And tomorrow, definitely at 7 p.m. On the program, Becca HIJJA will be here with the program looking at many people. Sofa beds have turned into bedrooms. That's the program for tomorrow. About sofa beds have become permanent beds, and that's on bridging the gap. I think it's about men being chased out of the bedroom and being forced to stay or sleep in the sitting rooms. Relationships. Yes, let's look at Coach Hatima here talking about the kind of mistakes, polygyny mistakes as an initial wife. Yes, please, Isma, we are ready for that, and that will end tonight's conversation.
Outstanding Personal Relationships and outstandingpersonalrelationships.com. I've been requested to do this video about polygyny mistakes or poly mistakes as an initial wife. I know years ago I'd been super reluctant to share my story or talk about some of the mistakes I've made as an initial wife. I think that as one and as such, I have been able to speak from a place of privilege, to be honest. Oftentimes, initial wives are looked at as the ones that we are accepting of. Society looks at us as above our co-wives or the subsequent wives because we're the ones that are supposed to be here legally. However, Islamically, the lawful wives are the ones that are up to 4 and the ones that a Muslim man marries, and he can marry up to 4 in my culture. But in the West, of course, the subsequent wives are not looked at as anybody other than, I don't know, you guys, side chick, baby mama. And that's just not the case in Islam. And I'm here to say it. And I said what I said because that's what Islam says. And I respect that. And I've never talked about my co-wife other than her being a co-wife, because I'm not going to strip her of her rights to marry in polygyny, nor am I going to strip myself of my rights to be with a man that practices polygyny. I'm not 20 anymore. I'm almost 50. And I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you the fact that I can't, being where I am now as a woman that's, closer to 50 than I am to 40, be, in a situation or in a marriage where my husband is in the house all the time, and that's not a diss to him. It's just that I see that as my children have grown, especially my daughters, I notice that they need more time to talk to me or more time to connect as women, because all my daughters, there's 4 of them, and I have an amazingly awesome bonus daughter through my co-wife. I love her very much, my bonus baby, and she's just incredible. And my daughters are incredible too. Not to take anything away from my daughters through biology, but my bonus baby is awesome. She is. And I hope she knows that. I'm sure she does. She's a little dynamo. And but with that being said, I digress. My daughters are older now. They're not little babies and not little girls at all by any stretch of the imagination. My oldest child is almost, she'll be beyond her mid-20s this year. So with those ages come different conversations, come more mature conversations. So I need more time with them. As their mother, as a woman to woman, we need more time. We need more, just
the ability to just sit around each other and talk and connect. We've traveled together, things of that nature. I've been waiting for this time in our lives for a long time. They get my jokes now. They know why I laughed at certain jokes when they were little. So they talk about that often with me. We just talk about the world and what's going on in their lives and what they want to do. What are their goals? What are their fears? And I don't want to censor their truth.
Isma, actually, I should have
polygyny
flagged
has
where we should
allowed
have
me
started
that
with the
time
clip.
with
I
my
think we haven't
children
really
and
touched on the
my
sort of
grown
regrets, but we are
daughters
out
to
of time. And
connect
therefore,
more with
sincere
them.
apologies. You can actually watch
And
this clip. It is
I
still
celebrate
available
that. I know
on
a time where I
our
wouldn't have
WhatsApp forums.
because I was
Please, if you
younger.
have the time, you can
And I had things
watch this
set in my
particular clip
mind in a
back
certain way.
and
So
just get a reflection on someone who has lived through this particular experience. Well, Isma, if you can just stop this. Not sure what happened there, but it's just the network almost went away just as we were sort of wrapping up. And there were very, very interesting messages in the chat room. Sort of HBN saying, oops, sorry, HBN saying, just prepare for this like you prepare for death. It's just a matter of time. When a man decides, a man has decided. Ladies, prepare for it like you prepare for death. You do not know when it is coming and how it will affect you. May Allah make things easy for us all and give us the wisdom to accept the will. And then Sophia Muhammad says, HBN, you have the right answer. Thank you for your advice. And Farida Tege on the acceptance says, for Dr. Also Dakti HBN, whether we like it or not, once a man makes up his mind, he will do it whether you like it or not. Over or far, no far. Mariam says, no preparation, you deal with it as of when it happens. Chibuka, you have the last word tonight, and I can only say thank you very much to everyone who has participated. Isma, in the technical department, we've kept you nearly an hour longer. My sincere apologies, but for topics like this, it is difficult to even, touch the surface. You just need when everything is just beginning to warm up. But tomorrow on Ummah Connect, there will be Sheikh Kata as usual from 2 p.m. and then History of the Prophets. And then on 75 W Radio, Becca Chinji will be looking at many people are now sleeping on sofa beds. So sofa beds have turned into bedrooms. I don't know whether it's overcrowdedness or men being thrown out of the bedrooms. Sheikh Chibuka, definitely, it has been a very enlightening conversation, and I've learned a lot, especially from the ladies. One way is to find a way that is easier to communicate this difficult news. Bad news for them, but maybe good news for us. And just to be able to fear God in everything that we do. A lot of this takes a lot of courage. And Imam Kas was actually being with us from the very start of the conversation all the way and then providing very, very good guidance. Thank you very much. And to all of you who have contributed. Of course, this is a difficult subject, a very difficult journey that probably nobody would wish to embark on it. Well, not at least for the man, he would want to. But for the women, I think it's not one that is easier to sort of take in very lightly. But for the men, at least, I think the takeaway tonight is so much about learning, understanding, and acknowledging the feelings, the emotions of the first wives or second wives or third wives, assuming you're bringing a fourth wife, to appreciate the fact that they are going through all this and what mentally this would do to them, finding better ways of being able to communicate. On the part of the women to try to understand, to be by being understanding, of course, what is legal. Oh dear, I've just gone to the next microphone trying to. Apologies. Understanding that by going through this kind of situation, we are finding ourselves leaning more and more towards a commitment. We are answerable to God, and being answerable to God means whatever we do now, we should take it. We should know that it's an act of worship. It's an ibadah. We take these women as our responsibility. Failing to deliver on that, many, many men are going to go to hellfire on the day of judgment, simply because of the things that we have not done right in our homes when we had the chance to do so. So it's a commitment that you make when you decide to go down this route. Therefore, you should know the implications that are in there. So for me, I think that has been really the sort of the strength of it, understanding the emotions of women. There are women who will never accept it. There are many who are beginning to change, having listened to women like Mariam Chisitwan, the sort of the goalposts that have been shifting according to her, considering or depending on who she has listened to and what the circumstances are. So, Chef Suleiman Tibuka, you have the last word to wrap us up in 2 minutes, please. Then we can let our nice viewers tonight go and have a rest and have a rethink probably about what has happened tonight in tonight's conversation.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be very, very brief and very short. I just want to go back to the clips that we have seen, but also the initial clip you sent me this morning. And I would say that much as, for example, the issue of polygamy appears to be a fulfillment of the male, probably, given right, but I think it is the women our wives who can come out very, very strong and can be very successful in terms of the reward. The degree of magnanimity and generosity and accommodation and sacrifice that could be demonstrated by those who are found into it, whether it is the first wife, that ability to accommodate and support the second co-wife, and also those two to support the third, wallahi, means a lot. Even if the man appears to enjoy himself and exercising his God-given right, but they too have a biggest, alhamdulillah, degree of support. And secondly, lastly, which is just to consolidate the same point you have mentioned, when we say that the word, marriage is ibadah and marrying a second wife is ibadah, actually, we've got to understand it from the actual lens of the meaning. Being ibadah does not mean it should be taken lightly. I'm doing ibadah. So what does it mean by that? There is no ibadah that fails the criteria that will be accepted. And one of the most binding, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that inna haqqi shurut and tuwaffa mastuhillat biha al-furuj. One of the most binding obligations and conditions that are on mankind are those by which the consummation of marriage becomes legitimate between husband and wife. So you take someone's daughter or someone's, whatever, a person as your wife is a massive responsibility. So just a matter of whether you're fulfilling man 50%. No, it's not. It goes beyond that. But if this is going to be built, whether with the first wife and the second one, the third wife, on the understanding that we take each other as amana, as a trust in each other's hand, that will set the sale to be easier, the serving will be easier, and even lighter, be kind of marriage that will render the family become a role model for others to learn and emulate from. Jazakallah khaira, Sheikh. I thank you very much for organizing this, and I'm looking forward to your next session, inshallah.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very, very much to everyone who has been with us tonight. It's been quite revealing, quite telling, and I'm sure we've probably given it a different take because this was not like the Sheikh Seka, sort of session, because it had its own sort of style. And hearing from people, the only unfortunate thing, probably the failure tonight, is I've not heard from someone who has come in as a co-wife to sort of confess. Of course, the clip helped us to sort of get into that. It would have been very good, just like we got one husband who has two wives speaking very highly of them and his own relationship with them. I think it would have been very, very good to hear from a woman amongst the women who, are in that relationship and, they are happily there. Because that I think for me was the sort of the missing aspect in tonight's conversation. Thank you very much. See you Tuesday, inshallah, same time, 8 p.m. bi'idhnillah, with another very interesting topic. Thank you very much for everyone who made the time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and keep you safe until then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We've been live on 75W Radio, live on Ummah Connect, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. You can watch back this program, of course, if you just missed it. If you just go to YouTube and just type in Come Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira, and you can watch any other programs that you have missed in this particular series. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.